Hey guys, tonight we're taking a little trip. You'll be waking up in the glorious capital of the Inca Empire, Cusco, around the year 1491. High in the Andes Mountains, air thinner than your patience, you open your eyes to a life that's probably not yours, but let's pretend it is. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, so are a few million other people who expect you to work, obey, and sacrifice things to the sun. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it for you right now? Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You just woke up in a one-room, windowless stone house, one of many in a densely packed neighborhood of mud alleys and squeaky llamas. Your house is shared with people. Many people. Possibly too many. You're one of the commoners, the Hatun Runa, which roughly translates to the guy who does all the work. There is no door. Just a piece of woven fabric hanging in the doorway to keep out the cold. It doesn't. You're curled on the floor. No bed, just llama skin padding, which may or may not still have a llama smell. The floor is stone. The pillow is your arm, and the ceiling is low enough to bump your head at least once before sunrise. So congratulations. Your morning headache comes pre-installed. The high-altitude chill punches your lungs before you even get up. You are 11,000 feet above sea level, and it feels like someone replaced your oxygen with regret. You're short of breath after sitting up, which is fine, because you won't be sitting long. There is no morning routine, just morning survival. Someone outside is yelling in Quechua, which you understand in the same way you understand a cat screaming outside your window. The voice belongs to your Elu leader, the head of your labor unit. He's summoning everyone to begin their daily duties. Yes, at dawn. No, there is no sick leave. No, your cough doesn't matter. In fact, you don't matter. The Inca bureaucracy is stunningly advanced for its time, and you are a cog in its glorious, sweaty machine. But don't worry, you're part of something important. The empire is massive, stretching over 2,500 miles of mountains, jungles, and deserts. You're technically building history. Literally. There are roads to build, temples to carve, fields to farm, and festivals to prepare for. The Inca state knows what everyone owes: time. Your tax is your labor. It's called mita, a mandatory public service system that historians still debate was either a genius method of organization or a very organized nightmare. If you're waiting for breakfast in bed, let me offer you something else. A blanket of dust and a gentle shove out the door. Because outside, the streets are waking up too. Dogs sniff around, kids are chasing each other barefoot, and someone is already weaving on a backstrap loom. You're not even fully awake, and you're already behind. You peek out and see the mountains glowing pink and gold in the early light, which would be beautiful if your nose weren't dripping and your stomach weren't growling. The empire's capital is bustling, with orderly streets and well-planned terraces. Impressive, yes, but also designed for control. Even your house was state-issued, according to your family's number and your social status. Want privacy? That's adorable. Around you, people wear tightly woven tunics, speak in low tones, and move with purpose. The only ones who seem to float effortlessly are the noble class, the Inca elite. They're few, you're many. The class division is real, and you can't marry out of it. You're born where you belong and die there too. Social mobility isn't just rare, it's mythical. And then there's the whole religious backdrop. The sun god, Inti, sees everything. So even if you had thoughts of sneaking away or faking a sprained ankle, guess what? The sun saw it. Better keep moving. Oh, and before you ask, no shoes for you. Sandals made of woven grass or llama hide are reserved for special occasions, and even then, they're about as comfortable as walking on a wet sponge stapled to a tortilla. The day is starting. Your legs are still sore from yesterday's hike to deliver potatoes. Today will likely involve carrying something heavier and more pointless. You're hungry, underdressed, and one good sneeze away from becoming a minor deity's cautionary tale. But hey, at least it's not raining. Yet, you shuffle out of your llama skin burrito blanket and stumble into the pale Andean dawn, which hits you like a polite but relentless slap. The air is so thin you could bottle it and sell it as a scam. Your lungs, used to the cozy comforts of modern sea-level breathing, are now going on strike. Each breath is a negotiation. Each step is a negotiation with pain. You slept on stone. You'll remember that fact every time your spine cracks like stale bread. The bed was just a cold spot on the ground with maybe, a rug that feels like someone shaved a cactus. And your blanket? It's hand-woven, yes, and also designed to repel comfort. Welcome to traditional Andean textiles. Beautiful to look at, slightly aggressive to the skin. Now the good news, the sun's coming up. The bad news? That's your alarm clock. There's no rooster, no gentle chimes, no customizable sleep app. Just a creeping band of golden light slapping you in the face and a neighbor's baby already crying because it's born into this timeline. Outside, everyone is already moving, fast. You're not sure how anyone has energy when no one eats and everyone is sleeping on medieval yoga mats. But here we are. The city is humming. People mill around with baskets, bundles, or complaints. You stand there blinking, clearly behind on your emotional startup sequence, and then someone shoves a bowl into your hands. It's warm. It smells vaguely of sour corn, feet, and regret. Ah yes, Choclo API, a fermented corn porridge that's technically food but emotionally confusing. It's sort of a breakfast. Sort of. You stare into its greyish goo and wonder if you'll ever feel joy again. Spoiler, not before lunch. Someone yells at you, again. This time you recognize one word. Oilu, your labor unit. You belong to a group, and that group belongs to the state. You do not own your time. The state owns your time. And time is money. Except you don't have money, because this is a cashless society. The Inca economy is based on labor and reciprocity. You give your sweat, they give you the privilege of not being exiled to llama herder school in the highlands. You gulp the Choclo API. It doesn't taste bad. It doesn't taste good. It mostly just exists, like a warm thought you didn't ask for. After breakfast, if you can call 2 spoonfuls breakfast, it's time to freshen up. This is where things spiral, because there's no basin, no towel, no soap, no minty anything. There is a stream nearby, but the water is freezing and populated by helpful bacteria that want to destroy your intestines. You splash some water on your face and feel immediate regret. It's glacial runoff, and it's basically liquid time travel. It slaps you into the moment, wide awake, painfully aware, and 100% not caffeinated. Now, before you ask, no, there is no coffee. The Inca had coca leaves, yes. They chew them. It helps with altitude sickness and dulls pain. You try one. It tastes like sadness wrapped in spinach. Your tongue goes numb. You're not sure if it's working or if your taste buds just gave up. The town center, where most of the people gather, is buzzing. It's made of beautifully fitted stone, so perfect you could barely slide a playing card between the bricks. No mortar, just precision, and fear of failure. The Inca engineers were either geniuses or held at spear point by someone very persuasive. Historians still argue whether these techniques were passed down orally or through a deeply secret caste of master builders. You're now officially behind schedule. You should be at the storage depot collecting llama dung for fertilizer, or worse, headed up the hill to reinforce terrace walls. You pick the former, because fertilizer smells better than failure. As you start to move with the others, you notice something. No one is complaining. Everyone just does what they're told, quietly. This isn't because they love it. It's because they understand something very clearly. The Inca watch everything. They had a network of runners, messengers, and record keepers, quipucamayos, who kept tabs on everything from your work hours to your llama-to-hare ratio. You are not special. You are quantifiable. You walk past an old man who coughs and mutters a prayer to Pachamama, the earth goddess. You do the same. Not because you believe, necessarily, but because everyone else does. Religion isn't optional here. It's structural. It's woven into politics, into farming, into whether or not you get decent weather. And nothing ruins your day like divine disappointment. By the time the sun has risen above the hills, you are walking up a steep trail, breathless, itchy from your wool tunic, and already dreading what's next. Spoiler, it's the bathroom situation. But we'll get to that. Let's get this out of the way. The bathroom situation is more of a vibe than a facility. You walk uphill along a narrow stone path carved into the mountain. The views are stunning. Snow-capped peaks in the distance, birds crying overhead, and the early sun glinting off the golden temples in the city center. But you are not here for the view. You are looking for a place to, well, unburden yourself. Because in the Inca Empire, the toilet is not a room. It's an event, a social experiment, and often a small public performance. There are no stalls, no seats, no privacy. The average Inca commoner takes care of their business wherever the state or the terrain allows. Usually, that means a field, a ditch, or the edge of a terraced hillside, somewhere slightly away from homes, but not so far you'd trip over a llama in the dark. You clutch your stomach. The Choclo API is staging a rebellion. You climb up to a known communal spot, a rocky ledge with a rather unfortunate breeze. Other people are already there, some chatting, some squatting, and no one looks embarrassed, because there's no such thing as personal space when the whole empire shares the same plumbing philosophy: gravity. You choose your ledge, do what must be done, and pretend no one saw you. But someone probably did. You remember now, eye contact is the real enemy. Worse yet, there's no toilet paper. You check your surroundings and spot some smooth leaves. They look friendly. You pray they aren't secretly poison. You use them. Nature wins. Inca cities did have some sense of public sanitation. Archaeologists have found stone-lined drainage channels, especially in sacred or noble areas like Machu Picchu. But you don't live in Machu Picchu. You live in you'll-figure-it-out-chu. The wealthy, of course, had slightly better options. Some upper-class homes included designated latrines with special ceramic jars or pits. Primitive, but better than cliff-top performance art. The elite might even be attended to by a servant holding scented herbs, which sounds luxurious until you remember that someone had to be the servant. You, naturally, are not the elite. You're lucky if no one from your Ailu sees your bare backside and critiques your squatting form. Historians still debate the true extent of Inca sanitation. Some argue the system was shockingly efficient, citing the use of irrigation canals to help rinse away waste near agricultural zones. Others suggest the system was mostly based on hoping the alpacas wouldn't notice. Either way, you now deeply appreciate the miracle of indoor plumbing and the unsung heroes of toilet paper innovation. You trudge back downhill with a slightly bruised ego and a profound sense of vulnerability. And the kicker? Your hands are now dirty. Not metaphorically, literally. There is no soap, no hand sanitizer, just cold river water and good intentions. You rinse your hands in a trickling stream, hoping the bacteria aren't too offended. The water is icy and pure-looking, but you've already learned the hard truth. Appearance is not safety. In fact, waterborne diseases, like dysentery and parasites, were common among the Inca, though probably less so than in medieval Europe. That's not comfort. That's just grading on a tragic curve. Someone nearby sneezes. You flinch. Is it a cold? Is it Huacatai-scented plague? You don't know. What you do know is that every single person here shares the same resources, air, and unfortunately, the same germs. It's a communal lifestyle, and that includes your immune system. The mid-morning bell, more like a shouted command from the local official, calls you to return to your labor duties. You have no break, no coffee, and no socks. But you do have a better understanding of why ancient history is often best experienced through books, not time machines. As you begin your walk toward the terrace fields, one thought keeps echoing. Why did no one invent a wall? Just one. Around the toilet spot. For dignity. For hope. Then again, you remind yourself. You're in the Andes, 11,000 feet up, on a slope built by bare hands and stone chisels. Survival here is not about comfort, it's about compliance. The Inca Empire was vast and successful for a reason. Everyone worked, everyone sacrificed, and no one got away with slacking, or with a decent toilet. After the bathroom ballet and your soul-resetting splash of glacial stream water, you're ready for breakfast. Or at least you think you are. But remember, in the Inca Empire, you don't eat when you're hungry. You eat if you're lucky. You follow the others back toward your Elu's communal eating space. It's not a kitchen. It's more like a circle of stones and tired hopes. Someone's already stirring a large clay pot over a fire that smells like burning alpaca dung. Because, surprise, there's no firewood up here. So you burn what your llamas leave behind. Bon appetit. You're handed a bowl. It's warm, which is promising. You look inside. It's corn. Again. Mashed, mushed, boiled, or sometimes just rehydrated with a prayer. Corn is not just the backbone of the Andean diet. It is the diet. Your bowl today holds saralawa, a thin corn soup that looks like sadness in liquid form. It's slightly yellow, vaguely gritty, and only mildly sentient. You sip it slowly, trying to convince yourself it's comforting. It's not. It's warm, yes, but emotionally cold. No salt, no spices. Just a thin taste of historical endurance. Sometimes you get a small side of OCA or mashua, native tubers that resemble potatoes if potatoes were grown on a dare. They're slightly sweet, slightly weird, and entirely underwhelming. You chew with the enthusiasm of a man reviewing beige wallpaper. The rich, of course, eat differently. Nobles get quinoa, llama meat, even dried chili and salt, actual flavors. But you're stuck in the corn dimension, and there's no way out. Still chewing, you notice the Inca don't waste anything. Every leftover kernel, every root scrap goes back into storage or into the next stew. There are massive granaries, kolkas, dotting the hills, packed with freeze-dried potatoes, chuño, and dried corn. Ingenious preservation system? Absolutely. Delicious? That's debatable. Historians still argue whether chuño was a food, a weapon, or a punishment disguised as a meal. You're offered a cup of chicha. Don't get excited. It's not fruit punch. It's fermented corn beer, cloudy, pinkish, and slightly sour. It has the alcohol content of a sad whisper, but it's enough to make you feel a tiny bit braver about the rest of the day. You take a sip. It tastes like someone yelled flavor into a cup of damp corn, but you finish it anyway. Because water, as you've now learned, is not always safe. Chicha is at least boiled. And who knows, maybe the mild alcohol will numb your tongue or your feelings. Around you, other workers eat in silence. There's no chatter about politics, no idle gossip. The Inca government is always watching, and free speech is not a concept that's made it to these mountains. You keep your thoughts to yourself, just like your opinions about the soup. There are no forks or spoons, by the way. Just your fingers, or maybe a carved wooden scoop if you're fancy. You eat quickly. Meals aren't meant to be social events. They're fuel stops. This isn't brunch. It's survival. You look down at your bowl and realize you're still hungry. That's not surprising. Inca commoners often lived on under 2,000 calories a day, despite laboring for 10 to 12 hours. Your stomach growls, and someone next to you gives you a look like, "New here?" You nod solemnly and mentally apologize to every cafeteria lunch you've ever mocked. The worst part? This was one of the better meals. Some days, you just get dried beans and boiled water. Other days, nothing at all. And on celebration days, you get roasted guinea pig, kiwi, which sounds cute until you see it served, face and all, on a stick. You're not there yet. Emotionally, you're not ready to look your dinner in the eyes. With your bowl empty and your soul slightly cracked, you stand up. There's no thank you, no tip the cook. You simply hand your bowl back and walk toward the next misery, clothes. Because while breakfast leaves your stomach hollow, your outfit might just hollow out your will to live. If the Inca Empire had a fashion week, you wouldn't be invited, but you would be the model for Peasant Winter 1491. It's itchy, it's beige, and it's everywhere. Let's start with the basics. You get one outfit. One. And it's not a rotation system. This is your look for the season, the year, the foreseeable future. Your entire wardrobe fits on your body. If you're wondering what's in your closet, the answer is lice. You pull on your tunic, a unku, made of thick, hand-woven alpaca or llama wool. Sounds cozy, right? It isn't. The wool is scratchy, the weave is loose in the wrong places, and the whole thing smells like it remembers every fire it's ever been near. The good news? It's warm. The bad news? You're now allergic to your own outfit. There's no undergarment, no socks, and definitely no elastic. You tie a sash around your waist to keep it all vaguely in place. Congratulations, you are now Inca chic, in a look best described as itchy burlap meets survival. Historians often praise Inca textiles as vibrant and complex, and they were, if you were royalty. The rest of you get earth tones and disappointment. Your sandals, ojotas, are made from woven plant fibers, or, if you're unlucky, leather that's older than your sense of humor. They're tied around your feet with string that somehow manages to be both too tight and completely ineffective. 3 steps in, and you're reconsidering all your previous life choices. Walking in them feels like balancing on braided lasagna noodles. The moment you step outside, the wind reminds you that your outfit was not designed by someone who lived above 11,000 feet. The chill creeps up under your tunic like an unwanted opinion. And just when you think you've acclimated, it starts to drizzle. Wool plus moisture equals historical sponge. You glance around and see others dressed similarly. Only the Caracas, local nobles, get color or design. You might see one in bright reds or vibrant greens, maybe with a feathered headdress or shell jewelry. The rest of you blend into the mountain like walking rocks with poor posture. Washing your clothes? Not really an option. Water is scarce. Soap is non-existent. And even if you did wash them, drying wool in the high-altitude air takes approximately 1 full Inca calendar cycle. So your tunic is both your armor and your prison. You sleep in it, eat in it, work in it, and suffer in it. Personal grooming isn't much better. There are no mirrors, just polished metal discs that give you the vague idea of a face. You use a bone comb to scrape the lice from your hair, which sounds medieval, because it is, and it doesn't work. Fun fringe fact: some Inca commoners purposefully cultivated lice. Why? Because the insects fed on their blood, and feeding the lice was considered an offering to the gods. Yes, really. You are now, quite literally, a walking altar. Historians still debate whether this practice was widespread or symbolic, but right now it doesn't matter, because you've got company, and they're crawling. Body odor. That's not even a social issue. It's the default setting. You stink, everyone stinks, and the llamas smell better than you. No one's offended. You're all living in a giant pot of boiled root vegetables and unwashed dreams. When it comes to seasonal fashion, the rules are simple. In winter, wear more wool. In summer, still wool. You just sweat more and hope the lice take a vacation. You think longingly about your modern clothes, your soft hoodie, your clean underwear, your synthetic fabrics. Then the wind whips your tunic up a bit and you think, never mind, I'd settle for a pair of shorts that don't bite me back. You have no jewelry, no accessories, no shoes that actually fit, and no weather protection. But you do have a hat, a thick woven cap called a chulo. It has ear flaps and a pom-pom on top. On anyone else, it might be cute. On you, it's just another sponge for rain and regret. You sigh, you scratch, you trudge. and you try not to think about what's living in the seams of your unku. Your jaw hurts. You haven't even done anything yet this morning besides eat hot disappointment and wear sadness disguised as wool, but somehow your teeth have decided today is the day to revolt, and there's no help coming. Welcome to Dental Hygiene Inca Edition. First off, toothbrushes, number paste, number floss, invented centuries later and deeply missed. What you do have are chewed sticks, sometimes soaked in herbs, and the occasional river rock passed off as a tooth scraper. You rub a twig against your molars with the desperation of a man cleaning graffiti off a stone wall, with the same results, barely cosmetic, deeply frustrating, and vaguely painful. You chew on coca leaves again, mostly because it's the only thing that numbs the inside of your skull. The leaves leave a residue like sour green sandpaper, but it dulls the ache a bit. Temporarily. Maybe. The Inca didn't understand cavities as bacteria. No one did. Instead, they thought toothaches were caused by toothworms, invisible creatures burrowing through enamel, chewing through nerves like it was their personal buffet. Honestly, doesn't feel far off. If your tooth gets infected, deep pain, swelling, jaw stiffness, you have limited options. There's the herbal route, where a shaman might wave a guinea pig over your head, then diagnose your illness based on the animal's final shudder. But if the pain doesn't go away, someone's going to yank that tooth out with whatever's lying around. A dull blade, a chisel, a stick, and hope. There are skulls, hundreds actually, unearthed by archaeologists that show worn-down, cracked, and broken teeth. This wasn't a rare problem, this was daily life. In some burials, they even found teeth with stone fillings. Probably more symbolic than helpful, unless you count you now taste gravel as a benefit. You try to ignore the aching, but now that you've noticed it, it's all you can think about. Every heartbeat pulses through your jaw, every breeze makes your gums wince. And your breath. Let's just say if mint existed in the Andes, it was clearly being hoarded by the gods. You smell like fermented corn and betrayal. The nobles fared a bit better. They had access to better herbs, occasional imported goods, and, if lucky, a healer who wouldn't pull teeth just because you sneezed. But still, even the upper class couldn't escape the realities of early dental work. No anesthetic, no sterilization, and lots of spiritual chanting to cover up your screaming. You pass a man carrying a pouch of dried herbs, munya maybe, or wira wira, used to ease pain or clean wounds. He offers you some. You chew it out of desperation. It tastes like earthy bitterness wrapped in slight relief. You spit half of it out because the other half is stuck in your molars. Historians still argue whether the Inca had a formal system of dentistry or whether pain management was entirely in the hands of local shamans. Some evidence suggests they practiced cranial surgery, trepanation, with surprisingly high survival rates. So if they could drill into a skull and not kill you, yanking a bad tooth was probably considered light work. You wouldn't know, though. You're not in a city hospital. You're on a mountainside, breath fogging in the cold, trying to decide whether your backache or your mouth pain deserves more emotional attention. There's a kid nearby gnawing on something you can't identify. Maybe a root, maybe a stick, maybe a dead ancestor's chewing toy. You remember being told that teeth were tools here, not just for eating, but for softening hides, cracking seeds, and biting through plant fibers. It's no wonder they wore down by age 25. At this rate, you'll be toothless by the end of this simulation. And the worst part, you can't stop touching it. Your tongue keeps probing the sore spot like a masochistic hobby. You try to distract yourself with your surroundings, majestic stone terraces, flocks of alpacas, but even the llamas look like they have better oral health than you. You think of your electric toothbrush back home, your peppermint floss, your dentist with her clean gloves and kind judgment. You would trade a finger for a checkup right now. Instead, you rinse your mouth with river water, because hope springs eternal, and so do parasites. You spit, you wince. You walk, your teeth throb with every step, like tiny war drums reminding you that you are not, in fact, built for this century. You don't get to rest. You don't get to lie down and nurse your toothache. You certainly don't get to scroll aimlessly on your phone and pretend to be mentally preparing. Because in the Inca Empire, preparation is a luxury. Work is not. You are part of the mitta system, remember? Your tax isn't money, it's sweat. The state gives you land, food, barely, housing, barely. And in return, you give it everything else, including the structural integrity of your spine. So now, with a jaw that pulses like a cursed drum and sandals that feel like braided regrets, you trudge toward your assigned task for the day. Terrace maintenance. The majestic green steps cascading down the Andes that look so peaceful in postcards. You're the one maintaining them, with a pickaxe the size of disappointment. The sun is high now, and you're already sweating through your itchy tunic. You swing the tool again and again, chipping at rock, hauling dirt, and rearranging gravel by hand. There's no wheelbarrow. There's no help. There's just you, the slope, and a supervisor who watches with the enthusiasm of a sleep-deprived hawk. There are dozens of others working with you, men, women, even kids. You glance at a girl who can't be older than 6, carrying a basket of stones on her back. She's got stronger calves than you. You're not even offended. You're just scared. Children start working young here, not in a whimsical, chores-build character way, but in a carry that bundle or don't eat way. If you're able-bodied, you contribute. If you're not, that's a conversation between you and the state. And the state doesn't make small talk. Women are everywhere, too, bent over planting seeds, weaving cloth, grinding maize. And just in case you were about to ask, no, that's not all they do. They also raise children, cook, fetch water, and help build infrastructure. Rest is just a noise made by foreigners. The tools are simple: wooden hoes, stone hammers, woven slings. You begin to understand that the glory of the Inca Empire was not built with gold, it was built with backs, yours included. You stop for a moment to stretch, and your fingers tremble. Not from the labor, but from altitude, exhaustion, and maybe the beginning of despair. Your stomach grumbles, your head throbs, your feet feel like angry loaves of bread. But no one stops working. There are no breaks unless someone breaks you. Even then, there's no workers' comp. There's just a different task that involves slightly less moving and slightly more moaning. Historians still debate the fairness of the mitta system. Some argue it was efficient and communal. Everyone did their part. Everyone received what they needed. Others point out that for peasants, it was indentured servitude under a golden sun, which frankly sounds poetic until you're on hour 5 of lifting rocks. You look around for shade. There is none. The Andes don't do convenience. You take a sip from your gourd of chicha, watered down and warm. It does nothing. You're fairly certain your ancestors are watching from the sky and shaking their heads. A messenger runs by, a chasqui, light on his feet, carrying a bundle of knotted strings called quipu. It's the Inca data system, a textile-coded record of numbers, tributes, and possibly even names. You envy him. At least he's running. You're just slowly disassembling as a human. The labor is endless and spectacularly unrewarding. You aren't building a palace or carving a temple. You're removing weeds between rocks so a future potato crop doesn't die. There are no thank yous. There's no applause. Just the sound of stone on stone and the occasional alpaca judging you from a distance. And yet, somehow, it works. The empire runs. The roads stretch for thousands of miles. The food gets stored. The temples shine. All of it powered by hands like yours. You swing your tool again, trying not to think of your dental agony, your itchy tunic, your empty stomach, or the suspicious smell drifting up from your left sandal. You try not to think at all. And in that moment, you finally understand what the Inca elite really built. An empire not of gold, but of obedience. Of ordinary people doing extraordinary work for someone else's glory. By late afternoon, your body feels like a musical instrument, but one played badly and mostly out of tune. Every joint creaks, every muscle hums, and your skin, it's playing percussion with the wind. Welcome to the other master of the Inca Empire, the weather. The Andes don't negotiate. 1 minute, you're sweating under the sun like a rotisserie guinea pig. The next, clouds roll in and you're suddenly starring in your own frostbite documentary. There is no in-between. There is only betrayal, and the sky is fluent in it. As you trudge down from the terraces, your tunic clings to your back, damp with sweat, but already stiffening in the chill. The temperature drops fast here. 1 moment you're roasting, the next, the wind cuts through your clothes like a sarcastic ghost. You feel each gust like a slap from nature. And remember, you're dressed in exactly one piece of clothing. Your unku, the same thick wool tunic you woke up in, worked in, and will eventually sleep in. It's about as good at temperature control as a wet sock in a microwave. You have a chulo on your head, but the ear flaps are doing nothing except flapping with existential dread. The sun is still out, barely, but it's useless. High-altitude sun is bright, yes. It's also deeply judgmental. It will burn your skin without making you warm. You're sunburned and shivering at the same time, which feels like losing a bet with the universe. In the summer, it's worse. The heat bakes the stone pathways until they radiate warmth like portable ovens. Your feet blister inside your rope sandals, which now double as flavor enhancers for pain. You'd kill for a fan, even a gentle breeze. Instead, you get bugs. Mosquitoes, midges, flies, all buzzing, all biting, all deeply invested in your personal discomfort. You swat at your arms, you swat at your legs, you even swat at your own shadow, just in case it's plotting something. And don't get too excited about bathing to cool off. We'll revisit that mistake shortly. In winter, you huddle. Everyone huddles. Your breath fogs the air as you gather around a small dung fire, crammed shoulder to shoulder with other equally unwashed people. There is no central heating. There is only body heat and hope. You pull your unku tighter, even though it's already crusted with salt from your own dried sweat. Romantic, isn't it? At night, temperatures drop so low that your teeth chatter like maracas in a panic attack. You lie on a stone floor, wrapped in your wool blanket, trying to ignore the fact that you can feel the cold through your bones. Sleep isn't rest. It's survival with your eyes closed. Your roof is made of thatch, leaky if it rains, flammable if it doesn't. Your walls are stone. That sounds solid until you realize they store cold like an ancient refrigerator. You're basically sleeping in a prehistoric meat locker. Historians sometimes marvel at how the Inca survived such extremes. Some argue it was resilience. Others say it was architectural genius. Stone walls that retained heat, terraces that controlled runoff. But if you ask your frozen toes, they'll say, lies. You dream of things you once took for granted. Socks, zippers, climate control, a thermostat with settings that aren't just too much and not enough. You pull your hat down lower, scratch at your neck, lice never sleep, and curl into yourself like a broken spoon. Someone next to you coughs. You'd offer a tissue, but that concept hasn't been invented yet. You all just cough in unison like a sick little choir. And the worst part, you know tomorrow will be exactly the same. The sun will rise. The wind will bite. The same clothes. The same cold. The same alpaca giving you judgmental side-eye. Weather here is not a background element. It's a full-blown character. Moody, unpredictable, and always stealing the spotlight. You don't know whether to pray to the sun god Inti for warmth or the earth goddess Pachamama for mercy. So you pray to both. And then to your own blistered feet, hoping they'll forgive you in the morning. At this point, you're not asking for much. Not comfort, not luxury. Just water. Clean, drinkable, non-vengeful water. You wake up with a tongue that feels like woven wool, your lips cracked, and your breath doing its best impression of fermented root soup. You stumble toward the nearest stream, hoping for relief. What you find is questionable clarity and the faint suspicion that something died upstream. Because in the Inca Empire, water is sacred, but that doesn't make it safe. You cup your hands and sip hesitantly. It's cold, it's sharp, and it tastes faintly of moss and mystery. There's a good chance it's glacier melt. There's also a good chance it's been used by 3 different Alis, 2 alpacas, and a ceremonial offering before it got to you. Still thirsty? Try chicha again. That warm, cloudy corn beer. It's boiled, sort of fermented, and statistically less likely to introduce bacteria into your body. The Inca used it for rituals, offerings, and, on days like today, as a vaguely hydrating excuse to forget your circumstances. You drink, you burp, you accept your fate. Now bathing, that's an adventure. The Inca bathe for ritual, not refreshment. You don't splash water on yourself to feel clean. You do it to purify your soul. And if you're a noble, there's a special spot near a spring for just that. If you're not a noble, you bathe when you're told, and usually only during major festivals or before a sacred event. Once a month, if you're lucky, you approach the stream, ready to wash at least your hands and face. But someone stops you. You can't do that here. It's a sacred channel. You nod, back away respectfully, and realize half the clean water is protected by religious significance. The other half is full of proto-germs. Historians still debate how hygienic the Inca truly were. Some argue their water systems, qanats, canals, and aqueducts, were marvels of pre-modern engineering. Others point out that these same systems often doubled as waste channels, depending on the neighborhood. Genius meets gastrointestinal roulette. Still, they had principles. Washing your feet was routine before entering a temple. Pouring water over your head was common in noble circles. Some even used herbal rinses, mint, munya, eucalyptus, though you suspect those were reserved for the top of the social ladder. The rest of you? You're lucky if no one yells when you try to rinse your pits. Bathing, by the way, is dangerous. The Inca believed washing too often opened your pores to disease. Sound familiar? It's a philosophy shared by many pre-modern civilizations where the logic was clean, mun vulnerable. So you're dirty, but technically safe, and definitely itchy. You try to recall the feeling of a hot shower, the steam, the soap, the weird shampoo you only bought because it said invigorating. Now your water is the opposite, unfiltered, freezing, and mildly judgmental. You approach the stream, ready to wash at least your hands and face. But someone stops you. You can't do that here. It's a sacred channel. You nod, back away respectfully, and realize half the clean water is protected by religious significance. The other half is full of proto-germs. Historians still debate how hygienic the Inca truly were. Some argue their water systems, qanats, canals, and aqueducts, were marvels of pre-modern engineering. Others point out that these same systems often doubled as waste channels, depending on the neighborhood. Genius meets gastrointestinal roulette. Still, they had principles. Washing your feet was routine before entering a temple. Pouring water over your head was common in noble circles. Some even used herbal rinses, mint, munya, eucalyptus, though you suspect those were reserved for the top of the social ladder. The rest of you? You're lucky if no one yells when you try to rinse your pits. Bathing, by the way, is dangerous. The Inca believed washing too often opened your pores to disease. Sound familiar? It's a philosophy shared by many pre-modern civilizations where the logic was clean, mun vulnerable. So you're dirty, but technically safe, and definitely itchy. You try to recall the feeling of a hot shower, the steam, the soap, the weird shampoo you only bought because it said invigorating. Now your water is the opposite, unfiltered, freezing, and mildly judgmental. Hey guys, tonight we travel somewhere quiet, polite, and deeply exhausting. You've just woken up in Edo, Japan, sometime around 1710. You're not a warrior, you're not a merchant, you're not even a poet. You're a mid-ranking tax clerk, part of the shogunate's great bureaucratic engine. The good news, you're alive. The bad news, so is your superior, and he's already asking why your account ledger smells like ink and despair. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You open your eyes to the faint smell of damp tatami, old ink, and pickled vegetables. A single beam of light filters through the paper screen to your right, shoji, made of rice paper and shame. It illuminates the wooden ceiling, which creaks gently with each shift of your futon mattress. Spoiler: this isn't a romantic ryokan. This is your room, and you rent it from someone who reminds you daily that you're replaceable. Rent is collected in rice and subtle resentment. You roll off your futon, knees cracking like old lacquerware. The mat beneath you smells vaguely like mildew and sweaty scrolls, which makes sense because the entire building smells that way. There is no insulation. In the winter, you wear layers. In the summer, you suffer. There's no furniture, really, just storage boxes, an inkstone, your brushes, and the ever-present pile of scrolls tied with twine that threatens to crush you in your sleep. You share the building with 3 other clerks, each more tired than the last. Privacy isn't just a luxury, it's a Western concept that hasn't reached you yet. You can hear one of your neighbors already clearing his throat dramatically, likely preparing for another long day of loudly announcing things that no one asked for. It's 6 a.m., and you've already been made aware that his tea is too weak. You stretch. Bad idea. Your back responds with a sharp warning. You're 29, but your posture screams 93. You hobble over to the basin, a ceramic bowl of yesterday's water, and splash some on your face. It's cold enough to wake your ancestors. You dry your face with a thin cotton cloth that you've been using for 4 days. It now smells like resignation. You open the screen and step into the narrow hallway. Wooden floors, no shoes allowed. Your Gita, wooden sandals with 0 shock absorption, are waiting by the door like judgmental little stilts. You look outside. The street is already buzzing with vendors, messengers, and distant shouting. The city of Edo is alive and aggressively punctual. But you're not part of that freedom. Your government, your paperwork. You are, technically, important, but only in the same way a drawer is important to a desk. Your role: record rice taxes, manage farmer quotas, check the status of stored goods, and ensure that everyone pays the shogunate what they owe. And when they don't, you send a letter, which gets ignored, which means more letters, and more ink, and more explaining why you're behind on reports to a superior who collects your failures like hobbies. Oh, and you're not samurai either. You're lower. Still technically samurai class, yes, but more desk warrior than katana-wielding badass. Your sword is ornamental, your robe is second-hand, and your dignity is approximately 1 inch tall, like a polite bonsai tree. Historians still argue whether tax officials in Edo were quietly respected or just tolerated with forced smiles. But judging from the side eyes you get at the bathhouse, the answer leans toward the latter. The best part? You're not even corrupt. Some are, of course. They skim a little rice here, a little silver there. But you don't have the nerve, or the connections, or frankly, the stomach to lie for profit, which means you're honest and poor, history's least glamorous combo. You head back inside, light the oil lamp with a practice flick, and sit cross-legged at your writing table. You begin unrolling the first scroll. It's from a village 20 miles away, and someone's written in calligraphy so fancy it borders on illegible. You squint, sigh, and prepare your inkstone. Another beautiful morning in the Edo bureaucracy. And your day hasn't even really started yet. You haven't eaten yet, but before your stomach even gets a say in the matter, you're already knee-deep in bureaucracy. You've barely rolled up your sleeping mat, and your superior is already clearing his throat, again, with the ominous gravity of a man who once read The Art of War and took it personally. You shuffle into the cramped records room, where scrolls lean like weary dominoes, and every surface is a hostage to paperwork. The air smells like old ink, dusty parchment, and lightly stewed anxiety. You bow. Too low and you look desperate. Too shallow and you're disrespectful. So you aim for respectful fatigue, which is basically your brand now. Your boss nods without making eye contact. Classic Edo power move. You sit, or rather, kneel, on hardwood. For the next, forever. A clerk hands you a stack of tax records, neatly tied with rice twine, and the implied message, "This is your entire morning now." The brush in your hand is frayed. The ink smells like wet soot. The paper is delicate, rice-based, and absorbs every mistake with joyful permanence. You start copying tax figures. Rice owed, rice received, rice stolen, rice accidentally eaten by rats, allegedly. You record the quantities in koku, the standard unit of rice measurement, roughly enough to feed one person for a year. You haven't had that much food in 5 years. The farmers tend to underreport. The landowners tend to over-complain. You are the person in the middle, caught between starvation math and elite theatrics. You try to write neatly, but your fingers are already numb and your knees feel like pickled wood. Oh, and there's a scroll missing. You didn't lose it. You know you didn't lose it, but your superior thinks you did, and so begins your daily game of maybe it's your fault. You bow again. Apologize. Promise to find it. You won't. No one will. It's probably under a lacquered desk somewhere, being used to prop up a wobbly tea tray. Meanwhile, the office is loud in the most polite way imaginable. Brushes scrape softly. Scrolls unroll like sighs. Someone breathes too loudly near the window, and 2 clerks exchange a look that could kill. You sip water from a bamboo cup, and it tastes like yesterday's disappointment. You glance at the clock. Not digital, of course. It's a water clock, and it's slow. Or maybe time is slow. Either way, you're still here, still kneeling, and still trying to remember if the farmer from Shimokita was the one who bribed you with pickled radish or just lied creatively about a failed harvest. Finally, you're permitted to eat. You bow again, as if your stomach is a dishonor you must atone for. You retrieve your bento box from the side shelf. Today's menu, cold rice. Slightly less cold pickled daikon. A single salted plum. No fish, too expensive. No meat. You're not samurai enough. No flavor, by design. You eat slowly, because if you eat fast, you're done. And if you're done, you go back to writing. So you make each grain of rice a journey. You chew 14 times per bite like a monk performing an edible ritual. You chase it with a sip of lukewarm green tea that tastes like steeped grass clippings and the ghost of caffeine. Still hungry? Too bad. There's a knock. A courier arrives, hands trembling under the weight of a fresh stack of appeals. Farmers protesting taxes. Villages arguing over border lines. Some guy claiming a monkey ate half his rice quota. Historians still argue whether the Edo bureaucracy was efficient or simply elaborate theater. But in your experience, it's mostly a long-running performance of The System Works, performed by underpaid extras in moldy robes. You finish your tea. The ink is dry. Your hand cramps into a claw. You bow again. You return to the records. You do not scream. You do not cry. You write. And you wonder, briefly, if enlightenment might come via rice ledger. You have to go. Not metaphorically. Not spiritually. Just biologically. And in Edo period Japan, this is not a private matter. It's a pilgrimage. You step carefully across the wooden walkway behind your lodging, sandals clicking like hesitant applause. The outhouse, or benjo, if you want to sound historical and deeply uncomfortable, waits for you at the edge of the courtyard. It's a small wooden shack, more crooked than cute, with a sliding door that sticks like it's guarding a secret. Inside, it's dim and damp and smells like, let's call it, century-aged authenticity. The wooden floorboards bend beneath your weight in a way that says, one earthquake and we both go down. The toilet itself is a squat box above a pit with 2 carved footrests and the whisper of past regrets. You squat. You regret. You question your life choices. There is no plumbing, no flushing, no porcelain throne, just a deep, Dark hole and the hope that nothing looks back. And there are flies. Not just a few. An entire buzzing congregation holding what seems to be a conference in acoustics and psychological warfare. You swat aimlessly, trying not to fall forward into what would absolutely be a career-ending incident. You reach for what should be toilet paper and instead find rough paper scraps, or maybe it's old accounting mistakes. You wipe with hesitation and finish with a sense of emotional erosion. Now here's the fun part. Night soil collectors. Yes, it's a job. Some poor soul comes around with buckets to collect the contents of your very real fears and carts it off to be used as fertilizer in nearby farms. It's called humanure, and it's worth money. Edo had an early waste economy. Efficient, yes. Hygienic, debatable. Historians still argue whether it was revolutionary sanitation or just an elaborate excuse not to dig deeper pits. Wealthier families, of course, had indoor pots, usually lacquered, sometimes ceramic, always too fancy for you. They'd use water to clean. You use a damp rag that's been hanging outside all week. Congratulations, you're clean. Enough. You exit the outhouse, pretending nothing happened, but everyone knows. There's no insulation in this city, remember. The walls are paper. So are social boundaries. Every grunt, splash, and polite curse has an audience. Worse still, public toilets exist, but they're worse than yours. They're communal, crowded, and located in alleyways so shady even the sun refuses to go near them. You went there once. You left with a rash, 3 new insect bites, and a story you'll never tell. You try to rinse your hands with the little water ladle hanging on a bamboo stand nearby. The water is questionable. It's been sitting there since yesterday, probably longer. You splash it anyway. At this point, your hands are more historical artifact than hygiene instrument. You dry your fingers on your sleeves, which are already stained with ink, tea, and existential dread. Then you slide the outhouse door shut, as if sealing away your shame. The latch doesn't work, so it just creaks open again. Perfect. Walking back through the courtyard, you try to carry yourself with dignity, but dignity left an hour ago and took your appetite with it. You think about modern plumbing. Sinks, soap, flush handles. You would cry, but you suspect your tears would get infected. Your co-worker sees you returning. He nods silently, with that knowing look shared by all who have emerged from the benjo. You nod back, bonded in shared bathroom trauma. Neither of you will speak of it. Because some things are sacred, or at least unspeakable. You return to your desk. A new scroll awaits you. So does a strange itching sensation. Don't scratch, just write. Lunch arrives not with a triumphant drumbeat, but with the soft rustle of a cloth-wrapped wooden box being placed quietly on your desk. The bento has arrived, your daily ration of edible disappointment, carefully packed with the solemn grace of a funeral offering. You untie the wrapping and slide the lid off, like you're revealing a treasure. But it's not a treasure. It's a cold rectangle of white rice, a sliver of grilled mackerel so thin it looks theoretical, and 2 bright pink pickled radishes that smell like vinegar and personal failure. There's also a single umeboshi, salted plum, staring back at you like the puckered face of someone who made all your life decisions for you. You eat in silence. Everyone does. The office has a rule about conversation during lunch. If you're talking, you're not suffering correctly. You chew slowly, stretching each bite like it's a haiku about emptiness. The rice is cold, stiff, and slightly dry. Your jaw does most of the work. You glance longingly at the ink bottle beside you and wonder if eating that would taste less like regret. Fish? It's there for protein, technically. But you're pretty sure it was grilled yesterday. Or possibly the day before. It's salty, which is smart. Salt preserves things, including your will to live, barely. The pickles are acidic. They crunch loudly in your mouth, which makes you feel self-conscious in a room of clerks who chew like ghosts. One glance from your superior, and you're suddenly chewing like you've taken a vow of monastic digestion. There's no meat unless you're samurai or wealthy. And even then, meat is rare and expensive. Chickens are for eggs, pigs are for compost, cows are for labor. You are for rice. You sip your tea, hoping for comfort. It's not comforting. It's censure. Green tea steeped so long, it's bitter enough to legally count as feedback. The taste clings to your tongue like an unpaid debt. You swallow anyway. It's the warmest thing you've touched all day. Some clerks envy the peasant's millet porridge. It's hot. It's filling. It doesn't try to impress anyone. Meanwhile, your meal is presentation over substance, much like your entire career. You finish your bento. You bow slightly to the box because custom dictates it, not because you feel grateful. You wrap it up again and slide it into your satchel. It still smells faintly of ink, vinegar, and worn-out hope. There are whispers around the office. Someone's family sent a rice cake for New Year. You don't get any. You weren't invited. You never are. Sometimes you think about what luxury must feel like. A warm meal, something with miso, maybe fish that doesn't look like it's mourning itself. You once heard about a clerk who got invited to a samurai's home for a formal meal. He cried after eating fresh tofu. Historians still debate whether Edo food culture was egalitarian or deeply stratified. Official records celebrate simple, healthy meals and seasonal ingredients. But let's be honest. If you're a tax clerk, your food is seasonal only in the sense that it gets moldy faster in summer. The bell rings. Lunch is over. You're expected to bow again, stretch without looking lazy, and get back to work copying rice quotas for a region you'll never visit. Your stomach is full, but not satisfied. Your spirit is quiet, but not rested. You pick up your brush, ink, scroll, numbers, and you chew a bit more. This time, not food, but the idea that tomorrow's bento will somehow be different. Your stomach is somewhat quiet now, but your clothes, they've started their daily mutiny. You slip back into your official attire, which sounds fancier than it is. It's a layered kimono made from stiff cotton and mild resentment. The fabric doesn't breathe. It wheezes. Your underrobe clings to your skin like a second layer of obligation, and your outer layer manages to feel both itchy and too tight in exactly the wrong places. The obi, the wide sash you must tie around your waist, is your mortal enemy. It cinches your middle like an opinionated snake. You tug, you adjust, you try to exhale, you fail. If your lungs had a union, they'd have gone on strike by now. Your tabby, split-toe socks, are damp from the morning courtyard walk and smell faintly like pickled cloth. They're white. They're supposed to be white. Yours are more of a philosophical off-grey now. You pretend not to notice as you slide your feet into straw sandals that feel like walking on decorative coasters tied with sadness. This is your uniform, your badge of class, your paper-thin claim to professional legitimacy, and it's barely holding together. The clothing is standardized for your rank, simple, humble, and meant to convey diligence, but mostly it conveys laundry neglect. You haven't washed it in some time. Why? Because laundering kimono is an ordeal. The fabric must be taken apart, washed by hand, dried flat, then stitched back together. You are not paid enough to own a second kimono. You are barely paid enough to keep this one from unraveling. There's a dark spot near your sleeve. Ink, soy sauce, existential dread. You try to rub it off. You make it worse. You once heard of a high-ranking tax official who had his kimono dyed indigo. Expensive, dramatic, authoritative. But indigo costs rice, and you can barely afford salt. So your robe remains beige. Not even a bold beige. Just beige. Your hair is tied back in a plain style. No top knot. That's for samurai. You get the humble office clerk look, complete with stray strands and the faint scent of yesterday's tea steam. Your scalp itches. You blame the wig-like heat trap of your head covering, not the laundry situation. Denial is free. Historians still debate whether Edo's strict dress codes created social harmony or emotional claustrophobia. There were clothing laws for every class. What colors, what patterns, what fabrics. You wear what your rank allows, not what you want. Which means, in modern terms, you're showing up to work every day in a crinkled beige uniform that smells like a linen closet from the 1600s. And it doesn't stop at clothing. Posture matters. You walk with your hands tucked into your sleeves. You bow at the correct angles. You sit Caesar style, kneeling on the floor for hours. And if you fidget too much, someone will comment. Probably your boss. Probably in haiku. You once had a pair of slightly fancier sandals. You wore them on a festival day. Someone accused you of putting on airs. You've never worn them again. They sit in your closet, quietly judging you. You adjust your obi again. You attempt to shift the scratchy collar away from your neck. You fail. You scratch discreetly. You think momentarily of pajamas, of t-shirts, of elastic. And then you realize there is no elastic in Edo, only tension, and lots of it. The bell rings again. Break time is over. You rise. Your knees creak. Your robe pinches. Your dignity hangs by a thread, probably cotton, definitely fraying. And off you go, dressed for a job you didn't ask for, in clothes that make you long for nudity and a less regulated society. Your tooth throbs. It's the kind of dull, persistent ache that makes everything else feel worse. Your shoes, your job, your co-workers' breathing. The pain radiates up your jaw and settles just behind your eye like a whisper that won't leave. You know what's happening. That molar's been loose for weeks, and now it's staging a full mutiny. You reach for the only tool at your disposal, a twig. Specifically, a yoji, a small wooden pick you use to scrape between your teeth. There is no toothbrush, no toothpaste, no mint, just salt, maybe charcoal if someone brought some back from the bathhouse. You rub the salt on the offending tooth. The tooth laughs at you. You wince and pretend to be emotionally strong. Dental care in Edo, Japan is not a science. It's a test of your ability to suffer creatively. If the pain gets worse, and it will, you'll have two options: a local herbalist or a guy with iron pincers who's read exactly one book on mouth demons. Neither is ideal. One will feed you ground roots that taste like regret. The other will yank your tooth out on the porch while reciting Buddhist verses for emotional support. There's no anesthesia, just resolve. You remember hearing about clove oil. It's imported sometimes. Rare. Expensive. Your boss might have some, but asking him would involve small talk and an awkward confession of pain, which is somehow worse than the pain itself. You chew on a bit of dried green tea stem, hoping it will distract your nerves. It doesn't. Instead, it wedges itself next to the bad tooth and starts vibrating with a rhythm only your skull can hear. The clerk next to you sneezes, violently. You jump. The jolt sends a sharp jab through your jaw. You almost yelp. You don't. Because in this office, pain is personal and weakness is a private performance. You smile tightly. The tooth does not. Breath? Don't even ask. Your mouth smells like old soy sauce and paperwork. You haven't had anything remotely cleansing in days. Chewing leaves is traditional, yes, but the leaves don't fix cavities. They just camouflage them behind a forest of false hope. You heard once that the shogun had a personal dentist, probably a foreign-trained one, someone who used tools that didn't look like pliers stolen from a carpenter's bench. You daydream about this, about reclining on a silk mat while someone gently prods your gums with something sterile. Back to reality. Your only option right now is to tough it out. You clench your jaw. Bad idea. Pain spikes like a blade through your cheek. You unclench. You breathe. Historians still argue whether Edo-era dental practices were pragmatic folk wisdom or medieval guesswork. You lean toward folk pain management. They had powders, twigs, chewed herbs, and the occasional brave soul willing to experiment with vinegar and warm sake. You dab a bit of salt water on your tooth with a cloth. You feel like a monk performing a ritual of hopeless purification. The pain dulls, slightly. You decide to write standing up for a while. Less pressure on your jaw somehow. You dip your brush into the inkstone and resume your scroll work. Numbers blur. Names swim. Pain whispers again. "You live here now," it says. "I'm part of the team." You wonder, not for the first time, whether your co-workers suffer too. Whether that one guy with the sour expression also has a decaying molar. Whether he too has considered asking the bathhouse attendant for extra clove oil and decided instead to chew silently on regret. You make it to the end of your report. You roll the scroll. Your jaw pulses. Your stomach turns. And somewhere, deep in your soul, a molar tightens its grip on your sanity. The afternoon drags on like a kabuki performance in slow motion, ornate, repetitive, and performed exclusively for people who can't leave. You, meanwhile, are still in the office, still hunched over your scrolls, still pretending that your fingers aren't beginning to lock into a permanent claw. This is work, not glamorous, not noble, just endless. You copy rice quotas. You compare land tax assessments. You double-check the monthly yield from a village that may or may not exist on any current map. The ink dries slowly. Your patience even slower. You don't use pens. You use brushes. Tiny, delicate, fragile tipped brushes made of horsehair and emotional fragility. They break often. You sigh louder. Your right shoulder has started to seize up, so you swap to your left hand and pretend this doesn't make you want to cry. You fumble a character. It bleeds across the page like spilled grief. You blot it with trembling fingers. Your supervisor glances up. You bow, ashamed, like you've just kicked a shrine. The sun shifts in the sky. You shift on your cushion. A numb tingle spreads through your legs. You haven't stood in hours. But if you stretch too loudly, someone might think you're not working hard enough. Eventually, you're sent out. Finally, a courier's job. You're to deliver a scroll across town to another office filled with other exhausted clerks. The scroll is tied in silk, like it matters. You slip on your fraying sandals and shuffle into the heat. Outside, the sun punches you in the face. The streets of Edo are bustling. Vendors shout, kids run barefoot, and a fishmonger loudly offers something that might once have been a tuna. You do not stop. You cannot stop. You're still on the clock, even when you're outdoors. A tax clerk is never truly off duty. You walk quickly, bow often, and keep your expression somewhere between respectful and desperately trying not to collapse. Other workers pass you, craftsmen, rickshaw pullers, charcoal porters. You envy them. They're sweaty, loud, covered in soot, but free. You, on the other hand, are dressed like a folding screen and expected to move like one too. You arrive at the destination. You bow. You wait. You hand over the scroll. You bow again. They nod with the same exhausted, dead-eyed politeness you've perfected. No one speaks unless necessary. Every word feels like borrowing someone else's energy. Back at the office, you're rewarded with surprise, more paperwork. You sit, you write. You chew on your bottom lip and try not to think about the rising pain in your temple. You consider, for the 100th time, if it's possible to sprain your soul. Women in Edo, if you're wondering, aren't spared either. Some work as clerks, scribes, or tea-house assistants. Others manage household budgets, weave fabric, care for children, and cook 3-meal days on rice and willpower. Their labor just happens behind doors instead of behind scrolls. If you're a woman in your role, twice the effort, half the thanks. Evening comes slowly. No bell rings, no shift ends. Someone just sighs loudly, and others take it as permission to begin packing up. You stretch your legs. They wobble like wet bamboo. Historians still argue whether Edo period clerks were undervalued civil servants or the backbone of Japan's peaceful stagnation. From where you sit, covered in ink smudges and dried tea stains, the answer is both, and also tired. You drag yourself to your feet. The inkstone is dry. The lamp flickers. You roll up your last scroll of the day and seal it with a string that's been reused 3 times. No one claps, no one thanks you. You don't even thank yourself, because tomorrow is the same. And your work is never done. It's dark now. The lamps glow dimly behind rice paper windows, casting soft shadows across your already shadowy mood. The office is quieter, but not peaceful. You step outside, hoping to stretch your legs and maybe your soul, but the air has other plans. It's summer, which means the city of Edo is currently a steamy rice cooker, and you are the dumpling. Your layered kimono, already itchy and stiff, now sticks to you like steamed wallpaper. Sweat collects under your collar, rolls down your back, and pools between your shoulder blades like a tiny pond of suffering. You try to fan yourself with a sleeve. It only redistributes the disappointment. You want relief. There is none. In winter, it's the opposite. That same paper-thin house of yours turns into an ice cave. There's no insulation, no chimney, no magical heater humming in the background. Just layers upon layers of increasingly ineffective cloth and a tiny charcoal brazier that chokes more than it warms. You go to sleep in full attire and wake up with your breath hanging in the air like tiny clouds of help. Spring rains, beautiful in poetry, deadly in practice. The humidity climbs to supernatural levels. Your scrolls curl at the edges. Mold blooms silently on your sandal straps. You once found a mushroom growing behind your futon. You named it, then evicted it. And autumn? Aesthetic, sure. But the wind comes howling through the cracks in your walls like a ghost who missed his tax deadline. Leaves get everywhere. Your workspace fills with the rustle of fallen ginkgo. And let's not forget the smell. Half crisp air, half slowly fermenting fish from the street market next door. There's no air conditioning, no fans, just sweat in the summer and shivering in the winter, and something awful in between the rest of the year. Your clothing doesn't help. It's not seasonal. You wear the same kimono regardless of the temperature. In the heat, it traps moisture like a sauna with commitment issues. In the cold, it becomes a stylish filter for hypothermia. You try not to complain, because culturally, that's frowned upon. So instead, you cough politely. You nod toward the weather with a vague expression. Someone else coughs. Everyone understands. The shared suffering is the season's real harvest. You sip your evening tea. It's gone cold. It tastes like boiled memories. Inside, someone sneezes. You flinch. There's no such thing as flu season. It's always flu season. With limited medical understanding and zero airflow, Edo offices are basically shared Petri dishes wearing sandals. Historians still argue whether Edo's architecture was marvelously adaptive or just a fire hazard with a decent floor plan. The city was made of wood, paper, and good intentions, which meant fires were frequent, earthquakes were devastating, and you slept every night with a tiny voice in your head whispering, "Don't knock over the candle." You step back into your shared living quarters. Someone's already heating water over a charcoal brazier. Not enough for a bath. Just enough for face washing, and maybe to convince your toes they still matter. Your robe is damp, your socks are stiff. You pull your outer layer off and hang it over a hook by the window. It slumps there, like a tired ghost watching your life unfold. You crawl into your futon, which is also damp. Of course it is. Everything is, including your hope. Outside, a breeze stirs the branches. You close your eyes. It doesn't help. You're thirsty, not metaphorically, not philosophically, just plain old-fashioned parched. Your throat feels like it's been coated in powdered ink and official stamps. So you walk to the back of the house, where the communal water basin sits, cradled in a wooden frame like it's pretending to be helpful. You scoop some into a ceramic cup. It's lukewarm, a little cloudy, slightly metallic. You sip. It tastes like old roof tile and distant algae. This is considered clean water. You don't ask where it comes from. A well, a rain barrel, a possibly cursed stream, it all flows into the same wooden tub that's been sitting under a bamboo awning since the start of the Tokugawa regime. It gets boiled sometimes. Other times, the sun does the purifying. You try not to think about the mosquito larvae. You sip again anyway. And now you face the next challenge, bathing. Once a week, if you're lucky, you head to the local cento, a public bathhouse. It costs a few mon coins, which you technically shouldn't afford, but you also can't afford another week of being politely avoided on public transport. You gather your towel, a rectangle of cotton optimism, and head down the street. The bathhouse smells like damp wood, steam, and resignation. You pay, you bow, you step into the bathing area. You're immediately surrounded by naked strangers, steam, and the echo of uncomfortable throat clearing. There are rules. First, you wash before you bathe. There are no private showers, just a stool, a bucket, and a wooden ladle. You scrub yourself down with cold water and sand-like soap, trying to look casual as your neighbor hums through his armpit routine with alarming confidence. Once you're clean-ish, you can enter the hot bath. It's hot, really hot, scalding, skin peeling, steam your soul hot. You lower yourself in inch by inch, trying not to scream. Others sit calmly, like human tea bags steeping in silence. You sit beside them, eyes forward, knees drawn up, pretending this is relaxing. You try to breathe, you fail. The steam enters your nose like hot regret. You think about how this water has been shared by dozens today, and you're probably floating next to someone's uncle's elbow hair. Historians still debate whether Sento culture was a revolutionary hygiene system or a test of social endurance. Cleanliness was next to godliness in Edo, Japan, but also very much next to public exposure and shared bacteria. You soak, you sweat, you stew, and then, eventually, you get out. You dry off quickly, because you're not supposed to linger. Someone else is waiting. You bow again. You dress, sticky and half-cooked, and you shuffle home. Back at your room, your futon awaits. You lie down, still warm from the bath, still damp from the street air, and stare at the ceiling. You think about how much effort went into feeling clean, and how fragile that feeling is. Because by tomorrow, it will be gone, replaced by sweat, ink, cold rice, and a boss who thinks late scrolls are a capital offense. But for now, you're clean. Not really, but close enough. Hey guys, tonight we travel somewhere rich in spice, power, and steam. Literally. You just woke up in the heart of the Ottoman Empire, inside the kitchens of the grand Topkapi Palace. Not as a guest, not as a noble, as a cook. One of hundreds. The good news? You're technically in the most powerful palace in the Islamic world. The bad news? You're surrounded by fire, knives, impossible demands, and at least 3 men who already dislike you before breakfast. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is right now in your corner of the world. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up to the sound of someone sharpening a knife, not metaphorically, not poetically, just the cold, steady scrape of metal against stone, inches from your head. You sleep on a thin straw mat on the warm stone floor near the bread ovens. Your pillow is your bundled-up robe. Your blanket is whatever's clean enough to not smell like old lentils. It's still dark outside, but in here the fire glows orange from the belly of a vast oven, casting shadows on the brick walls. Someone's already ladling milk into a copper vat, and someone else is swearing softly because he dropped a bowl of chickpeas. You blink, sit up, and wince. Your back feels like you wrestled a camel in your sleep. You did not win. Welcome to the Matbaa-Amir, the imperial kitchens of the Ottoman court, built like a small city within the palace complex. Dozens of rooms, hundreds of workers, multiple levels of hierarchy, more like a military than a kitchen. And somewhere, high above, is the Sultan. He doesn't know your name. That's probably for the best. Your job is not glamorous. You are not a master chef. You're a second-level kitchen boy with an unfortunate tendency to over-season lentils. You're allowed to carry food, wash pots, and occasionally chop herbs if someone more important doesn't need the knife. The rules are strict. The hierarchy is brutal. The consequences, swift. You've seen a man demoted to onion-peeling duty for burning pilaf. You've seen another removed from the kitchen entirely for sneaking a fig, and no one ever explained where he went after that. You throw on your robe, still stiff from yesterday's sweat, and wrap a cloth turban loosely around your head. You tie it twice. You're not supposed to retie it during the day. That's considered suspicious, or disrespectful, or something. There are a lot of unspoken rules, and you've already broken a few by breathing incorrectly near the head of the rice division. The kitchen is awake. The air is already thick with the scent of simmering garlic, crushed mint, lamb fat, and wood smoke. You step carefully, always to the right, never block the firewood corridor, and whatever you do, don't walk between the head chef and the stew. One man did that once. He now works in laundry. You are technically part of the imperial household. The Sultan's food must be pure, perfectly prepared, and untouched by unclean hands. So before you do anything, you wash. You scrub your hands with sand and water, dry them with linen, and say a silent prayer that today's task doesn't involve boiling sugar again. Last time, you dropped a pan. You still have the burn to prove it. Historians still debate whether Topkapi's kitchens were culinary perfection or culinary purgatory. From where you're standing, barefoot in smoke and salt and half-formed regret, the answer is obvious. You report to your section head, he's already yelling. He hands you a list. You can't read Ottoman Turkish very well, but you know enough to decipher the phrase rice for breakfast now. You nod. You bow. You run. You have 90 minutes to prepare food for hundreds of palace residents, janissaries, scribes, scholars, eunuchs, concubines, nobles, and about 14 people whose job titles you've never heard spoken aloud. You are not one of them. You are the one boiling water, and it's already started to burn. You haven't eaten, but your hands are already scalded from lifting the lid off a massive copper pot of milk that's decided to boil over the moment you glance away. Welcome to breakfast. Ottoman court style, except you're not the one eating. You're just the one trying not to be yelled at for the second time before sunrise. The kitchen is awake in full now. Fires roar, blades clack. Steam rises from every surface, like the whole building is trying to disappear. You move quickly, not because you're energetic, but because moving slowly here is a performance art called fired. You don't speak. Speaking means you have time. You don't have time. Your supervisor hands you a basket of leeks the size of small swords and points at the chopping station. You bow. You begin. The chopping board smells like cumin and fear. You slice quickly, precisely, almost rhythmically, until, of course, you nick your finger, just a little. You suck the blood away and pray no one saw. Blood in the food is a capital offense, or at least an out-of-the-kitchen-for-good offense, which frankly might not be worse. You're still hungry, but feeding the court comes first. The Sultan's meal must be ready before the azan, the call to morning prayer. His table alone requires 5 kinds of bread, 2 egg dishes, yogurt from buffalo milk, and a sweet syrup so thick it defies gravity. You carry one tray, just one, a massive copper tray stacked with silver bowls. You wobble, you recover, you live another hour. As you return, your stomach growls. Someone tosses you a crust of bread. It's yesterday's, maybe older. You bow, you chew, it's dry, it's hard. You could probably shingle a roof with it. You chase it with a gulp of warm water from a wooden dipper and move on. You pass through the egg section. The scent of spices teases your nose, cinnamon, coriander, dried mint, and something citrusy. You're not allowed to taste, not even a finger swipe. All food for the Sultan is sacred, untouched. Even the smell feels like something you weren't meant to enjoy. The head chef yells again. This time it's about rice. There's too much. There's too little. There's not enough saffron. Or maybe too much. No one knows, including him, but he is very loud about it. Your stomach growls again. Louder this time. You remember the kitchens are ranked. Not just the staff, but the actual food. There's the Haz kitchen, which cooks for the Sultan himself. Then the Helverhain, the confectionery. Then the Kazan kitchen, which produces the massive communal stews for the Janissaries. You work in a kind of culinary no man's land, where the food is important enough to be criticized, but not important enough to be memorable. The worst part? You used to like cooking. Now, cooking is a military operation disguised as breakfast. You pause for a breath. The air smells like warm oil and damp stone. Your arms ache. Your legs are cramping. You can't stop now. A large copper pan of lentils needs stirring. You volunteer, even though it means being near the furnace again. You grab the giant wooden spoon. You stir. The lentils bubble like they're judging you. Somewhere above, the call to prayer begins. You freeze, not because of reverence, but because the Sultan will eat now, which means all meals must be plated, perfect, and present, immediately. You carry a tray into the dispatch corridor. You bow to the guards. You back away slowly. And just like that, breakfast is over. For them. You go back to the kitchens, scrape what's left in the bottom of the pot into a bowl. It's mostly broth. You slurp it fast before someone higher ranking takes it from you. You swallow hard. You do not taste saffron. You taste smoke, cumin, and the slow crumbling of your will to live. Historians still argue whether Ottoman palace kitchens were paradise for elite cuisine or punishment disguised as prestige. You're too tired to care. You have 6 hours to prepare lunch, and you've already lost count of the cuts on your hands. The breakfast rush has passed, but something else is building deep within you. Not poetic dread, not existential fatigue, just nature. You need to go. Yes, that kind of go. You glance left, glance right. You don't ask anyone. You just slip behind the hallway near the rice storage, clutching your robe like it's a time-sensitive secret. Because in the grand, marble-covered, gold-fringed magnificence of Topkapi Palace, there exists a quiet truth. The royal kitchens still smell weirdly like feet and onions, and the toilets are their own historical crime scene. The lavatory is a squat stone building attached to the kitchen annex. You push open the heavy wooden door, and the air inside hits you like a ladle full of fermented vinegar. Warm, moist, vaguely judgmental. You step in anyway, because you don't have a choice. The alternative is improvising behind the firewood, and someone got reassigned to fish skinning for that last week. There are no stalls, no privacy, just 4 stone holes in a row, positioned over a trench that may or may not have seen a cleaning crew since the reign of Mehmed II. You nod to the other cook squatting 2 holes over. He nods back. You both pretend this isn't happening. The floor is wet. Always. Why is it wet? Nobody asks. To your left, a small bucket of greyish water waits for your hygienic finale. There's a dipper carved from gourd and possibly a piece of string meant to serve a purpose that's been lost to time. You use the water. You pray it's clean. You dry your hands on your robe because towels are for people with higher pay grades. You do your business quickly, quietly. The flies don't care how fast you go, though. They're professionals. They've been working this circuit since Suleiman the Magnificent's salad days. And the smell? It's not bad in the traditional sense. It's more historical. Like the ghosts of 10,000 poorly digested lentil stews still haunt this space. You breathe through your mouth. That doesn't help. You breathe less. That helps. Somewhere deeper in the palace, the Sultan bathes in rosewater and dries off with linens embroidered in silver thread. His bathroom has fountains. Yours has moss. Historians still argue whether Topkapi's sanitation system was impressively advanced or impressively performative. There were aqueducts, yes, public fountains, dedicated waste channels, but none of those things seem to be working right here. Not in this room, not with this trench, not with this smell. You stand. You smooth your robe. You exit with dignity that smells faintly of mildew and cooked onions. You do not look back. Out in the courtyard, the sun stings your eyes. You take a deep breath of fresh air. It smells like charcoal, lamb fat, and salvation. Back in the kitchen, someone is yelling about garlic again. You rejoin the chaos like nothing happened. Because in the imperial kitchens, you may cook for royalty, but your bowels are strictly plebeian. You make a mental note to drink less water next shift, or at least time things better. And then you grab a cleaver, pretend your hands don't still feel slightly damp, and begin chopping again. You do not speak of the toilet. No one does. Ever. You're surrounded by food, bowls of almonds, lamb ribs, trays of sweet rice, pyramids of apricots, whole roasted birds glazed in something gold and sticky. And yet, you are hungry. Welcome to Culinary Irony, Ottoman edition. The meals are opulent. For the Sultan, each dish is a demonstration of power, refinement, and divine favor. For you, it's a test of restraint and class boundaries. You can smell them, you can prepare them, you can even carry them with both hands trembling under the weight of jeweled platters, but you cannot eat them. Lunch preparation is in full swing. The rice boiler hums a tune of despair. The bread ovens roar like angry lions. And you? You're peeling garlic by the hundreds, your fingers pruned and perfumed like you lost a fight with a spice merchant. As dishes are plated, honeyed carrots, quince stews, meatballs floating in yogurt and mint, you sneak glances, not bites, glances. You might get to lick a spoon, might, but only if your superior drops it and declares it unusable. You're very invested in things falling today. Meanwhile, your own meal is a bowl of tahana, a sour yogurt and grain paste that smells like warm regrets. It's old, it's reheated, it's yours. You slurp it down in the corner, crouched on a sack of chickpeas like a feral tax collector. A fly joins you. You do not fight for dominance. He has more rights here than you. Sometimes someone higher up leaves a few crusts of bread behind, soaked in stew, curled at the edges. If no one is looking, you swipe it. If someone is looking, you wait, like a jackal in a chef's hat. Eating leftovers is risky. Technically, all food served to the Sultan is sacred. Any hint of contamination, like your ungloved hands or humble breath, can lead to punishment. Not necessarily execution, but perhaps worse, reassignment to the butchering shed, where fish guts go to die, and so do your dreams. One time, someone took a bite of almond pudding from a half-cleared tray. He was demoted so fast, the spoon was still in his mouth when they took his apron. So you learn to live on crumbs. You chew quietly on a piece of hard bread, probably a week old. It tastes like the inside of the rice oven, slightly smoked, slightly miserable. You dip it in pickle brine for flavor. It doesn't help. Above you, trays float toward the banquet rooms. Waiters in pristine robes carry them like sacred scrolls. You carry pots. You stir cauldrons. You wipe the same counter 4 times because you're too hungry to stand still and not allowed to sit. You remember a time when cooking meant joy, smells that filled a house, a shared meal, a proud, "Try this." Now it's mostly orders barked over your head and food you'll never taste. Historians still debate whether palace cooks ate well or barely at all. Some sources say they received daily rations, bread, cheese, olives. Others hint that rank dictated quality, and low-level staff like you ate only what the pigeons didn't finish. A bell rings. The Sultan's lunch is served. You bow, even though he's nowhere near. It's habit. It's fear. It's policy. You return to the stew. You stir. You are surrounded by roasted meats, stuffed dates, cinnamon, and figs that shine like lacquered rubies. And still, you are hungry. Your robe smells like everything you've ever cooked, and everything you regret. It's technically a uniform, a long, coarse, grease-stained garment made from a wool-cotton blend that somehow manages to trap every scent but deflect all dignity. The fabric clings when it's hot, stiffens when it's cold, and never, not once, feels like something a human would choose to wear voluntarily. you pull it tighter, not for modesty, for survival. The palace kitchens are a battlefield of heat, blades, splashing oil, spilled yogurt, and the occasional random slap from your section chief. You need armor. What you have is a robe that's probably flammable and definitely haunted by yesterday's onion stew. Your socks, wool, scratchy, permanently damp from walking across the wet kitchen floors. They've taken on the texture of old sponges and the scent of boiled cabbage. You wear them because you must. Bare feet in the kitchen are forbidden, not for safety, but for appearance. Because you must look clean, even if you smell like a roasted lentil tragedy. You tie your headscarf, your sarek, with great care. Not too loose, not too tight. A poorly tied turban can be seen as disrespectful, lazy, or worse, symptomatic of independent thought. You check the mirror, if you can call a dull sheet of metal nailed to the storeroom door a mirror, and nod. Not out of pride, just resignation and lice. Oh, the lice. You stopped counting. They're just part of the team now. Tiny, persistent co-workers who never take a day off. You scratch discreetly, but you've accepted the truth. If your robe doesn't make you uncomfortable, the lice will. Your apron, stiff with old grease. You try to fold it, but it folds itself as if it's tired of being worn and has retired into a permanent crinkle. There's no laundry service. Not for you. The higher-ranking cooks send their garments to the palace washhouse, where linen gets boiled, beaten, and sun-dried by hand. You, on the other hand, scrub your robe in a barrel of soapy water once a week, using a brick, a prayer, and more denial. You hang it up on a rope behind the oven, where it absorbs smoke, then wear it again like it's clean. It is not clean, but it is dryish. That's close enough. Historians still argue whether the clothing of palace cooks was symbolic of dignity or functionally just a giant towel sewn into anxiety. You lean toward the latter. Shoes, sandals, if you're lucky. Leather, if you're very lucky. Most days you wear wooden narlins, thick-soled clogs that amplify every step like your own personal percussion section. They're slippery, hard, and somehow always too small and too big at once. In the winter, you layer. Extra robes, scarves, a coat handed down by 3 different men. It smells like mothballs and fermented stew, and the pockets contain exactly nothing but crumbs and unidentifiable lint. In the summer, you melt. The robe sticks to you like emotional trauma. You sweat through your turban. You contemplate cooking in your undergarments, but then remember someone tried that once. He was reassigned to the scullery, where meat meets floor, meets sadness. Your entire appearance is controlled, not by fashion, by hierarchy. Cooks must look presentable, at least in front of the higher-ups. You wear what you're told. You smell how you must. You smile only if someone more powerful than you is frowning nearby. And so, you cinch your belt. You push your sleeves up. You adjust your head wrap once more. Then you return to the stove, dressed in dignity's distant cousin, and someone spills chickpea flour on your shoes. Again, you wince, not from heat, not from hunger, but because your molar, yes, that molar, has chosen this moment to scream into your skull again. A familiar throb, pulsing, persistent, like a drumbeat played with a meat tenderizer from inside your jaw. Welcome to dental care in the Ottoman court, or rather, the absence of it. You rinse your mouth with warm water from the copper jug. It tastes faintly of soap, mint, and someone else's bad decisions. There's no toothbrush, no paste, no floss, no soothing commercials where your dentist wears a lab coat and smiles. Here, your only dental plan is don't chew too hard. Your teeth are a battleground, scarred, stained, and half surrendered. Sugar is rare but not absent. The palace loves its confections. Turkish delight, candied rose petals, honey cakes. You stir them, serve them, envy them. And sometimes, if you sneak a taste, your teeth repay you with a stabbing reminder of who's boss. One of your colleagues lost 4 teeth last month. 1 cracked on a burnt almond. The other 3 were removed. Not by a dentist, but by Hassan the Butcher, who moonlights as a tooth puller. His toolkit includes 1 pair of tongs, 1 flask of plum liquor, and 0 hesitation. You remember the sounds, screams, gagging, clinks of metal. The floor was stained for days. You avoid Hassan now, and almonds. Instead, you chew on the softer things. Soaked bread, soft rice, stewed greens. Even then, you sometimes hit a pebble, or worse, a bone chip that the fishmonger forgot to remove. The pain blooms across your jaw like a firework, only not fun, and no one claps afterward. Historians still argue whether Ottoman cooks had access to imperial physicians. Some say the higher ranks received limited care. Others insist they were treated like the pots they scrubbed, used hard and replaced when cracked. You prod a swollen gum with your tongue. It tastes metallic. Could be blood, could be lunch. Either way, not great. To mask the smell, you chew clove. It's the chef's cologne, pungent, numbing, and mildly effective. Except it doesn't fix the problem, just distracts you from it, like humming during an earthquake. There's also miswak, a twig from the arak tree. Technically a natural toothbrush. You rub it along your teeth when no one's watching. It feels like brushing with a polite stick. It helps, slightly. You think about the Sultan. He probably has someone whose entire job is to brush his teeth. Gold-threaded floss, rosewater rinse, maybe a lullaby afterward. Meanwhile, you consider whether drinking hot broth counts as sterilizing your mouth. There's talk of a new technique. Someone heard from someone who saw a European merchant boiling herbs and swishing them. Revolutionary, suspicious. Might be poison, might be medicine. You'll never know. You're not allowed to speak to Europeans unless you're on fig delivery duty. Your breath? Somewhere between onion jam and despair. But no one tells you. Everyone smells like that. The entire kitchen is a fog of cooked lamb and halitosis. It's solidarity, or mass resignation. If things get really bad, there's always the emergency option. Extraction. You say the word, and someone will hold you down. No numbing, no antiseptic, just hope. And plum liquor. Lots of it. You'd rather keep the tooth. So you chew on the left side. You avoid hot things, cold things, crunchy things, sweet things, spicy things. Basically anything that gives life flavor. And you smile less. Not because you're unhappy, though you are, but because you're terrified something might fall out if you do. It's still dark out when your body wakes up, long before your spirit does. You don't rise from your bed. You extract yourself from it like a spoon from half-cooled porridge. Your back protests. Your knees creak like the hinges of a market cart. And your hands? They already feel like they've chopped 100 onions before breakfast. Because they have. Being a palace cook in the Ottoman court is not a job. It is a sentence, handed down not by a judge, but by fate and a disappointing birth certificate. You shuffle into the kitchen courtyard before dawn. Fires need lighting. Dough needs kneading. And someone has already spilled lentils all over the grain bins. Again. You bend, sweep, sigh. You work in a unit called the Matba-e-Amire, the Imperial Kitchens, and it is exactly as glamorous as it sounds if you remove the glamour, the prestige, and any personal freedom. Your day starts at sunrise and ends, whenever someone more important than you decides they're full. There are hundreds of you. Bakers, broth makers, rice stirrers, water fetchers, egg counters, pickle watchers, dessert boys. Each person is assigned one tiny, relentless task. You are part of the stew team. That means stew, and nothing else. Not snacks, not bread, not even water. If someone asks you to help with meatballs, that's insubordination, and you can be beaten for it, with a spoon, a ladle, or a shoe, depending on the chef's mood. The tools you use are enormous. Cauldrons you could swim in, spoons as long as your arm, blades heavy enough to bend your wrist. You stir stew with your entire body, leaning into the motion like you're rowing a boat. One wrong move, and you're covered in boiling mutton. Women aren't allowed in the main kitchens. But you know from whispers that the women of the harem, especially the concubines and nurses, are trained in their own culinary arts. Sweet syrups, teas, medicinal meals. But their working conditions? Equally brutal. Especially the servants, peeling fruit with knives that barely qualify as sharp, carrying trays up narrow stairs while balancing gossip and expectation. Historians still argue whether cooks had days off. Some sources say religious holidays gave brief respites. Others claim you worked straight through them, just with fancier ingredients and stricter punishments. Either way, your feet never stop aching. There's a boy next to you, Ali. He's 11, maybe 10, maybe 30. It's hard to tell because his face looks like it's aged in butter and disappointment. He chops onions all day. You haven't seen his eyes in 2 years, just red puffballs of perpetual sting. The work is physical, yes, but it's also mental warfare. The same motions, the same orders, the same mistakes from the same people who never get punished. You forget what day it is. You forget your own name. You respond only to, "Hey, you." And sometimes you forget even that. Lunch break is not a break. You eat standing. If you're lucky, it's something you didn't make. If you're really lucky, it's not burned. Usually it is. You chew anyway. A higher-ranked cook walks by and shouts at you to smile more. You do. It feels like chewing glass. Some days you're sent out, to the market, to the docks, to fetch salt or apricots or a live goose that must be massaged daily before slaughter. And if it escapes, that's your entire month's wage. Gone. And the goose still lives better than you. You don't get tipped. You don't get thanked. You do get blamed for everything. Undercooked lentils? Your fault. Sultan's indigestion? Somehow your fault. Rain? Still your fault. And yet, you work. Because you must. Because the alternative is exile, punishment, or being reassigned to the latrine team. No one wants the latrine team, not even the latrine team. So you keep stirring, chopping, sweating, punching. You scrape burnt rice off the bottom of the pot with a broken spoon handle and whisper a prayer to the god of slightly less burned meals. And when the day finally ends, you crawl into bed fully clothed. You don't undress. There's no point. You'll be up again in 4 hours, and you might as well sleep in your work robe. It's the closest thing you have to pajamas. The moment you step outside the kitchen archway, the air sucker punches you. It's not just hot. It's not just humid. It's vengeful. The kind of heat that seems personally offended by your existence. You walk 10 steps, and your robe becomes a mobile steam tent. Welcome to summer in the Ottoman court. No fans, no vents, no clever Instagram hacks with frozen water bottles and box fans. Just you, your sweat, and the sun playing God with magnifying glass precision. In the summer months, the palace kitchens become ironclad furnaces. The hearths don't go out, not even at night. You work near the fire. Then you sleep in the same heat. Then you wake up with a crust of salt behind your ears and a sensation that your pillow tried to drown you. And when winter arrives, don't worry. Everything flips. Now it's cold enough to make your nose brittle. Your robe stiffens overnight. Your feet crack from exposure. The marble floors you once cursed for being sticky now punish you with bone-deep cold. You sleep in layers, shirt, robe, cloak, one stolen curtain, and still wake up shivering. Houses in Istanbul, built for beauty, not insulation. There are no radiators, no fireplaces in the servants' quarters. Just a brazier, if you're lucky, and the shared body heat of 4 other equally unwashed co-workers. Historians still argue whether kitchens were placed where they were for maximum ventilation or simply because nobody wanted them near royal bedrooms. One thing's certain, they were not designed for comfort. Your clothes aren't helping either. They're standard issue. 1 robe, 1 belt, 1 head wrap. Made from cotton if you're blessed, coarse wool if you're not. Always slightly damp, always slightly itchy, and always exactly wrong for the season. It's either too thick or not thick enough, rarely just right. Think Goldilocks, but if she lived in a sweatshop and cried into her soup. Shoes, wooden-soled sandals. In summer, they trap heat. In winter, they trap frost. Either way, they trap regret. Parasites love the weather even more than you hate it. Summer brings flies and mosquitoes. Winter brings fleas and bedbugs. One year, you watched a friend get bit by something that left a welt the size of a walnut and the temperament of a hangry god. He called it the Ottoman surprise. It stayed for 3 weeks. Bathing would help, maybe, but it's a luxury, and the weather doesn't exactly make it appealing. In winter, the water is freezing. In summer, it's thick with algae and mosquito eggs. You're either chattering through blue lips or scratching through red blotches. You fantasize about shade. Real shade. Not the kind made by a palm frond held awkwardly above your head during a royal procession. The kind with breeze, with silence. But that's for the Sultan, or at least someone higher ranked than you. You settle for leaning against a wall in the afternoon, letting the bricks steal some of your heat like a lazy vampire. Some of the palace cats have figured out which roofs stay warm at night. You envy them. Curled up, purring, completely indifferent to weather or rank. If reincarnation is real, you want to come back as one of those cats, preferably the one who lives behind the pickle storeroom. The worst is when the weather shifts halfway through the day. You start your morning in layers, only to end it baking like a stuffed pepper. Or vice versa, sun in the morning, frostbite by evening. No forecasts, just vibes. Very cruel vibes. You try to track the patterns. East wind means rain. Cicadas mean heat. Aching joints mean doom. But none of it helps. The weather arrives how it wants. Uninvited, unapologetic, and usually when you're carrying something heavy. Still, the work doesn't stop. You just sweat through it, shiver through it, curse through it, quietly, always quietly. Because noise brings attention, and attention brings new tasks, and new tasks bring more sweating or more freezing. Either way, you lose. The moment you step outside the kitchen archway, the air sucker punches you. It's not just hot, it's not just humid, it's vengeful. The kind of heat that seems personally offended by your existence. You walk 10 steps, and your robe becomes a mobile steam tent. Welcome to summer in the Ottoman court. No fans, no vents, no clever Instagram hacks with frozen water bottles and box fans. Just you, your sweat, and the sun playing God with magnifying glass precision. In the summer months, the palace kitchens become ironclad furnaces. The hearths don't go out, not even at night. You work near the fire. Then you sleep in the same heat. Then you wake up with a crust of salt behind your ears and a sensation that your pillow tried to drown you. And when winter arrives, don't worry. Everything flips. Now it's cold enough to make your nose brittle. Your robe stiffens overnight. Your feet crack from exposure. The marble floors you once cursed for being sticky now punish you with bone-deep cold. You sleep in layers, shirt, robe, cloak, one stolen curtain, and still wake up shivering. Houses in Istanbul, built for beauty, not insulation. There are no radiators, no fireplaces in the servants' quarters. Just a brazier, if you're lucky, and the shared body heat of 4 other equally unwashed co-workers. Historians still argue whether kitchens were placed where they were for maximum ventilation or simply because nobody wanted them near royal bedrooms. One thing's certain, they were not designed for comfort. Your clothes aren't helping either. They're standard issue. 1 robe, 1 belt, 1 head wrap. Made from cotton if you're blessed, coarse wool if you're not. Always slightly damp, always slightly itchy, and always exactly wrong for the season. It's either too thick or not thick enough, rarely just right. Think Goldilocks, but if she lived in a sweatshop and cried into her soup. Shoes, wooden-soled sandals. In summer, they trap heat. In winter, they trap frost. Either way, they trap regret. Parasites love the weather even more than you hate it. Summer brings flies and mosquitoes. Winter brings fleas and bedbugs. One year, you watched a friend get bit by something that left a welt the size of a walnut and the temperament of a hangry god. He called it the Ottoman surprise. It stayed for 3 weeks. Bathing would help, maybe, but it's a luxury, and the weather doesn't exactly make it appealing. In winter, the water is freezing. In summer, it's thick with algae and mosquito eggs. You're either chattering through blue lips or scratching through red blotches. You fantasize about shade. Real shade. Not the kind made by a palm frond held awkwardly above your head during a royal procession. The kind with breeze, with silence. But that's for the Sultan, or at least someone higher ranked than you. You settle for leaning against a wall in the afternoon, letting the bricks steal some of your heat like a lazy vampire. Some of the palace cats have figured out which roofs stay warm at night. You envy them. Curled up, purring, completely indifferent to weather or rank. If reincarnation is real, you want to come back as one of those cats, preferably the one who lives behind the pickle storeroom. The worst is when the weather shifts halfway through the day. You start your morning in layers, only to end it baking like a stuffed pepper. Or vice versa, sun in the morning, frostbite by evening. No forecasts, just vibes. Very cruel vibes. You try to track the patterns. East wind means rain. Cicadas mean heat. Aching joints mean doom. But none of it helps. The weather arrives how it wants. Uninvited. Unapologetic. And usually when you're carrying something heavy. Still, the work doesn't stop. You just sweat through it, shiver through it, curse through it. Quietly. Always quietly. Because noise brings attention. And attention brings new tasks. And new tasks bring more sweating or more freezing. Either way, you lose. Hey guys, tonight we descend into a place you've probably only imagined in Cold War thrillers or conspiracy theory forums. You wake up underground. Literally. Thick concrete all around you, humming fluorescent lights overhead. And the smell, oh, the smell, is a confusing blend of bleach, canned chili, and 49 other people who haven't seen sunlight in days. You're not in prison. You're in a Cold War bunker. Voluntarily. Sort of. The world up top might be ending, but down here, it's just beginning. The good news? You're alive. The bad news? So is everybody else. And they're not quiet. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Feel free to comment your location and local time, especially if you're listening from your own metaphorical bunker. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You don't remember falling asleep. But now, as your eyes flutter open, you're staring at a metal ceiling barely an arm's length above you. Your mattress, if we're being generous, is a thin rectangle of synthetic foam atop a bunk frame that could pass for a torture device. You're wedged into a lineup of identical beds. 25 top bunks, 25 bottom bunks, all crammed into a concrete box the size of your local laundromat, which, come to think of it, you would give a kidney to visit right now. No windows, no birdsong. Just the mechanical sigh of the air filtration system and the faint whir of a Geiger counter, because outside, radiation might still be dancing its invisible waltz. This isn't the fun kind of apocalypse where you grow a beard and drive a muscle car through a desert. This is the bureaucratic one, where every inch of your life is measured, monitored, and mildly damp. You sit up. Your back cracks. You're 29 but feel 82. The jumpsuit you're wearing clings in all the wrong places and somehow still manages to ride up. The floor beneath your bunk is clean, but only because yesterday was your day on mop duty. Everyone takes turns because nothing kills morale faster than a smelly corridor. Well, except for actual nuclear fallout. Your locker contains 3 items. Another jumpsuit, same size, same smell. A hygiene kit that includes a toothbrush roughly as soft as gravel, and a booklet titled, "So You've Been Selected for Shelter Life." The illustrations are smiling cartoons in gas masks. You stare at the cover for a moment, then shove it back into the locker. The air inside the bunker is special. It's filtered, yes, but filtered doesn't mean fresh. It smells sterile. It tastes like pennies. And no matter how deep you breathe, it never quite feels satisfying. One guy says it's because your lungs miss nitrogen. Another says it's because this is what communism tastes like. You don't know who's right, but you do know that the longer you stay underground, the harder it is to remember the smell of actual rain. Lighting here is set to a 24-hour civil schedule, meaning it gets slightly dimmer between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m., but never turns off completely, which is great if you're afraid of the dark and terrible if you're trying to sleep. One of your bunkmates snores like a dying lawnmower. Another whispers in his sleep, something about pie charts and missile trajectories. You try earplugs, but they're made of recycled foam and feel like chewing gum that's already lost the flavor. You dream of sunlight, but your brain's imagination can't quite get the color temperature right. Everything is too gray, like your surroundings have seeped into your subconscious and repainted your memories. You shuffle toward the common area, a space with 4 folding chairs, a cracked chessboard, and a poster of a bald eagle taped to the wall with the phrase, "Freedom means preparedness," printed underneath. It's all very comforting in a "my high school detention room was more fun" kind of way. Somewhere deeper in the bunker is the command room. You're not allowed in there. That's where the shelter officer lives, the guy who reads coded updates from the outside, if they even still come. He has a key. You have questions, none of which are ever answered. Historians still debate whether these bunkers were built for protection or simply to give people the illusion of control. One thing's certain: once you're inside, you're not in charge. The air, the food, the clocks, the rules, they all belong to someone else. And now, so do you. The smell hits you first, a mixture of warm plastic, reheated feet, and despair. You've already adjusted to the artificial atmosphere of the Cold War bunker, but the scent of collective living never truly goes away. It just sinks into the walls, into your hair, into your will to live. Your living space, if we're being generous, is more government storage unit than home. The concrete walls are painted with something that used to be white and now resembles the inside of a cigarette. Everything echoes. Every cough, mutter, and tragic fart bounces around the room like it's looking for an audience. You have exactly 6 feet of personal space, and that's including the narrow metal bunk you share with a mattress so thin it might legally be a napkin. There's no pillow, just a bundle of government-issue cloth that pretends to be one. Your blanket is military wool, stiff enough to fold itself. And every night, you try not to think about how many other people have slept under it before you. The ceiling drips sometimes. No one knows from where. Could be condensation. Could be not. The maintenance guy shrugs every time you mention it. Condensation builds character, he says. He hasn't slept near the drip. Lighting is never off. The fluorescents hum with the rage of 1,000 angry bees, and they flicker just often enough to make you question your sanity. There's a switch, technically, but turning off the lights violates Emergency Lighting Protocol number 12, which you're told is taken very seriously. No one knows what protocols 1 through 11 are. You and 49 others sleep side by side, row upon row like dominoes waiting to fall. The bunks are triple stacked in some places because space efficiency is more important than human dignity. You've learned to sleep through snoring, whispering, and the occasional midnight debate about whether the outside world still exists. One man claims to have heard birds, another insists he dreamed of fresh bread. Someone laughs, someone cries. It's hard to tell who anymore. There's a quiet hour, but it's not enforced. Just a laminated sign that says, "Please respect others' rest period." It hangs crooked, much like your patience. Your storage locker contains the sum total of your earthly belongings. 1 pair of state-approved shoes that squeak constantly. 2 jumpsuits, grey, loose, haunted. 3 pairs of socks so thin they qualify as hopeful suggestions. And a tiny bottle of something labelled all-purpose soap. No one knows what its original purpose was. There's also your psychological health kit. 1 deck of cards, a notebook, a pencil, and a booklet titled Managing Anxieties in Confined Spaces. The first page says, just breathe. The second page says, repeat step 1. You once drew a window in your notebook, complete with curtains and a blue sky. Someone stole it. You understand why. Your neighbor is always awake. You've never seen him blink. He stares at the ceiling like it owes him money. He hums the same 4 bars of a Cold War-era jingle over and over. Something about powdered orange drink and victory. Historians still argue whether the US psychological preparation for fallout survival helped or hurt morale. Most agree it wasn't great for either. There's no natural light, of course. Your circadian rhythm has declared mutiny. You eat breakfast at 10 p.m., feel sleepy at noon, and dream in static. Sometimes people forget what day it is. Sometimes they forget what year it is. Time doesn't matter down here, someone says. But it does. You feel it crawling along your skin like a polite centipede. Every day begins with a tone. Not a song, not a bell. A tone. A long, low note that buzzes through the air system. It means get up. It also means another day of this. One guy keeps track of the days by scratching marks into the wall with a spoon. He's either a genius or about to snap. Possibly both. You don't ask questions. It's hard to explain the psychological effect of being underground for this long. Your memories of grass, wind, or traffic lights fade faster than you thought they would. You start to question whether you ever really liked the outside world, or if that was just nostalgia being passive-aggressive. There are no mirrors. You haven't seen your own face in weeks. When someone tells you that you look tired, it feels like a prophecy. This bunker was designed for survival, not comfort, and definitely not sanity. Historians still debate whether the average citizen was ever supposed to thrive here, or simply exist long enough to wave a tiny flag if the world ever restarted. You lie back down. The mattress groans. So do you. And once again, you try to fall asleep while 49 people breathe, mumble, and snore around you in harmony. It's like a lullaby. If the lullaby was performed by a tired, nervous choir on a submarine headed nowhere, you shuffle half asleep past rows of bunk beds and sour breath, eyes bleary, socks damp, somehow always damp, and stomach cautiously aware of the canned beans from last night. It's time for the most dangerous journey you'll make today, a trip to the bunker toilet. The phrase restroom suggests something tranquil, something almost spa-like. This, in contrast, is a Cold War-era social experiment in humility. You push open the metal door and are immediately met with a smell that could be patented for use in crowd control. It's warm, it's wet, and it's very, very present. There are exactly 2 toilets for 50 people. Each one is made of unpainted steel, welded to the floor like it's afraid of being stolen. No privacy stalls, no doors, just 2 lonely thrones staring at each other across a narrow corridor, daring you to pretend this is normal. Above the toilets is a stern laminated reminder: waste disposal is a patriotic duty. You're not sure how that helps. You are now forced to perform your most vulnerable bodily function 6 feet from a person who might also be crying. It's a bonding experience. Traumatizing, but bonding. Flushing works, sometimes. The system depends on a delicate ballet of pumps, gravity, and hope. If one component fails, and it does frequently, the whole setup backs up like Cold War diplomacy. When that happens, a designated maintenance hero dons a plastic poncho and manually resets the flow using a wrench and exactly 0 thanks. Historians still argue whether the Soviet or American bunkers had better plumbing, but based on your current experience, it's clear that nobody really won. Toilet paper is a luxury here. It comes in thin, rationed rolls that feel like recycled military maps. You get 6 squares per day. This turns every trip into a math problem. There's also a stack of sanitary wipes from the early 70s that have fossilized into paper shurikens. You once saw someone barter 2 squares of Charmin for a can of peaches. It was considered a fair trade. And if you're thinking, why not a bidet? You sweet summer child. Water is rationed too. A bidet would be considered black market decadence. You do, however, have access to a plastic squeeze bottle labeled Cleansing Assistant that makes disturbing gurgling sounds. It smells like diluted bleach and broken dreams. Ventilation? Technically, yes. Functionally, no. The fan above the stall spins, whines, and occasionally coughs, like an old man trying to remember a tune. It doesn't move any air, but it makes the right kind of noise to pretend it's trying. The communal sink outside the bathroom has one faucet. Cold only. The water is desalinated, filtered, and tastes like aluminum gilt. You're supposed to wash your hands after every use, but the soap dispenser ran out on day 11 and was replaced with a bottle labeled Liquid Cleanser, Multi-Purpose, Slightly Minty. No one asks what's in it. Showering isn't part of the morning routine. That's a weekly event, assuming the solar water heater hasn't failed. Instead, there's surface hygiene, a fun Cold War euphemism for wiping yourself down with what feels like damp sandpaper. It's character building. Probably. Maybe. The walls are concrete. So is the floor. And just in case you thought the toilet environment was too modern, there's also a tiny poster with cheerful 1950s-style cartoon characters reminding you that a clean citizen is a strong citizen, right next to the overflowing waste bin. And just like everywhere else in the bunker, nothing you do is private. There's always someone waiting, watching, judging. One time, the commander of the bunker had to use the toilet after a particularly traumatic canned lentil night, and it was heard. Repeatedly. People stopped making eye contact for a week. The psychological toll is real. Historians still debate whether bunkers underestimated just how embarrassing basic hygiene would become. There's a theory that poor sanitation contributed to more breakdowns than lack of sunlight. You believe it. You've seen what happens when someone forgets to flush during shared duty week. It's not pretty. It's not forgiven. There's a clipboard near the exit labeled Bathroom Incident Report. Nobody uses it seriously anymore. The last 5 entries include Toilet 2 making whale noises again. Mysterious liquid under the sink, not water. Who took the good soap? Is this smell? Forever? Help? You wash your hands. Sort of. Then dry them on your pants because the towel was last replaced during the Nixon administration. Back outside, the recycled air feels like freedom, even if it's just more bunker air mixed with dust from 1964. You return to your bunk with the grim satisfaction of someone who's just survived another round of biohazard roulette. And as you lie back down, a thought occurs. You'll have to do this again tomorrow, and the day after, and maybe for the rest of your life. Welcome to Toilet Time, Cold War edition. You think you know hunger. You think you've experienced bland food. But until you've spooned powdered eggs into your mouth while seated under a humming fluorescent bulb, surrounded by 50 exhausted Cold War survivors in matching jumpsuits, you really haven't lived. Or maybe you have, and that's the problem. Breakfast arrives precisely at 7 a.m., carried on metal trays like war rations disguised as meals. Today's culinary offering: canned lima beans, again, 1 square of reconstituted scrambled egg product, and a packet of something optimistically labeled Vitamin Chew. You're told it's orange-flavored. It's not. It tastes like sadness wrapped in tang. There is no kitchen in the traditional sense. Instead, there's a food prep station manned by a rotating pair of sleep-deprived volunteers who have taken a 1-hour training session titled Thermal Warming Units and You. The meals come from a pantry filled with cardboard boxes and unlabeled cans whose contents are occasionally a surprise. One day, it's chicken a la king. The next, wet grey cubes that smell like memory foam soaked in broth. Cooking happens via a cranky hot plate connected to the bunker's emergency generator. You know you're in trouble when it flickers, and everyone goes quiet, praying not to be plunged into full darkness while holding a ladle full of creamed corn substitute. Historians still debate whether bunkers were ever adequately prepared for long-term nutrition or just banking on the occupants giving up their taste buds around week 3. Let's talk about bread. There is bread. Sort of. It's called survival biscuit, and it comes in shrink-wrapped packs with a shelf life of 30 years and the consistency of dry concrete. You could hammer a nail with it. You could also chew it, eventually. Once softened in a cup of lukewarm distilled water, it becomes vaguely chewable, like biting into a coaster. Your drink options are water, powdered milk, or coffee substitute. A mystery beverage brewed from something not quite coffee, but doing its best impression. One sip, and your mouth is filled with notes of cardboard, melancholy, and a faint undertone of nuclear anxiety. It's served warm, never hot. Apparently, scalding liquid is considered a safety hazard in confined quarters, because burns are the real problem here. If you're feeling fancy, there's powdered lemonade. It's fluorescent yellow, tastes like melted crayon, and is technically hydrating. People hoard it like currency. One bunkmate traded his entire dessert ration for a second cup. He was envied for days. Meat exists in theory. Cans of Spam, government-issue corned beef, or processed poultry log are rationed carefully, often reserved for holidays or morale emergencies. The taste is irrelevant. It's texture that offends. You chew, 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 and then it sort of gives up in your mouth like a meat-flavored sigh. And speaking of morale, once a week, the bunker holds Cultural Food Night. It's meant to break the monotony. Last week was Italian, which translated to canned spaghetti noodles and tomato-flavored paste sprinkled with crushed protein crackers. Someone drew the Leaning Tower of Pisa on a napkin. It was festive. By week 4, you stop caring about flavor. Meals become routine, rhythmic, grim. You're not eating for joy anymore. You're fueling a body trapped in a concrete simulation of existence. You dream of crunch, of fresh, of salt that hasn't been pre-packaged in a little packet and measured to the milligram. The pantry is inventoried daily by the designated food officer, who takes their job very seriously. Stealing is a crime punishable by toilet cleaning duty and public shame. And if anyone tries to hoard, they're voted off the canned pudding rotation. Remember pudding? It's the one redeeming bunker dessert, a smooth, sweet escape in a sea of beige. Chocolate, occasionally vanilla, and on holidays, tapioca. Historians still argue whether dessert was more effective than sunlight in keeping long-term bunker occupants from losing it completely. And don't even think about dietary restrictions. Vegetarian? Too bad. Gluten-free? That's adorable. Allergies? Hope you like hives and regret. Food is standardized, centralized, and absolutely not customized. You eat what the Cold War gods provide. The dining area is communal, of course. Long benches, metal trays, constant clatter and forced conversation. No one lingers. You eat fast, mostly to escape the noise, or the smell of boiled cabbage that never quite leaves the air. And as you scrape the last smear of protein paste off your tray, you realize something. The food is working. You're still alive. You're not starving, but you're also not living. You're existing at the intersection of edible and endurable, a culinary purgatory sealed behind blast doors. The final insult. Every meal ends with someone standing and announcing, "That wasn't so bad." They're lying, but you nod anyway, because you'll eat it again tomorrow. You've accepted the food. You've accepted the bed. But your skin, it refuses to forgive you. Welcome to the Cold War bunker fashion show, where every outfit is the same and every outfit is wrong. Your standard issue clothing is a one-piece jumpsuit made of a synthetic fiber the color of overcooked oatmeal. It's scratchy, stiff, and makes a swish-swish noise when you walk, a constant reminder that you are wearing the past's idea of the future. It doesn't breathe, it doesn't bend, it doesn't flatter. If fashion is expression, then this is a scream for help. You have two of them, one to wear, one to pretend you're laundering, because surprise, there's no real laundry. There's a sanitation cycle in the bunker, a sort of closet-sized chamber that heats your clothes with dry steam and hopeful thoughts. Historians still argue whether this process actually killed bacteria or just baked them into the fibers like seasoning. Underneath the jumpsuit. You wish there was something underneath the jumpsuit. You're issued one set of undergarments too. If you're lucky, they fit. If not, well, let's just say your thighs and that synthetic seam are going to get very well acquainted. There's no cotton, no wool. Those materials weren't built to last 25 years in a storage vault. What you're wearing now was designed for function, not comfort, which is funny because it fails at both. The elastic sags within a week. The cuffs are either too tight or too loose. You're constantly adjusting, and the sound of Velcro becomes a kind of shared despair soundtrack. And forget about socks. You're issued 2 pairs, which somehow manage to be both too thin and too itchy. After 2 weeks of use and makeshift washing in a shared sink, they develop the texture of old loafers and the scent of boiled regret. Shoes? Technically, yes. They're more like rubber clogs, identical left and right, with no arch support and barely any sole. They're easy to clean, which is great, because the floor gets mysteriously sticky at least once a week, but wear them long enough, and your feet start to question the point of having toes at all. The worst part isn't the discomfort, it's the sameness. Everyone looks the same color, same fit, same defeated slouch. You lose your visual identity. You begin to feel like just another cog in a damp, humming, government-issued machine. And the smell. Oh, the smell. Even with deodorant, if the supply hasn't run out, you start to notice that bunker air clings to fabric, that every meal, every breath, every emotion somehow seeps into your sleeves. You can air things out under a vent, sure, but it's like trying to dry laundry in a submarine. There are mirrors, technically. Small metal rectangles bolted to the bathroom wall. They warp your reflection like a carnival funhouse, except no one's laughing. You check for light. You pretend to check for style. But really, you're just looking to make sure your face hasn't turned completely grey like your surroundings. And the itching. Let's talk about the itching. One of your bunkmates, Rick, formerly a school principal, has developed a rash that might be fungal, might be psychological, or might be a side effect of having to wear the same pants for 18 days. Parasites? Possibly. Historians still debate the long-term effects of communal living on personal hygiene, especially when you can't exactly boil your socks. Haircuts happen weekly, performed by whoever drew the short straw and has steady hands. The clippers are battery-operated and temperamental, resulting in styles that range from prison buzz to accidental monk. The good news? No one's judging. The bad news? You'll still catch yourself in the mirror and wonder who you used to be before you became bunker guy number 37. Fashion accessories include a ration tag necklace for food, a flashlight bracelet, barely works, and if you're very lucky, a plastic badge that once said Volunteer Morale Officer before it cracked in half. Your personality? Still somewhere under the jumpsuit. There's a rumor that one of the shelter officers has a secret stash of non-regulation clothing. A hoodie, maybe jeans. It's probably a myth. But still, you imagine it. The feeling of denim, the whisper of cotton against your skin, the freedom of an outfit you chose yourself. You curl up in your synthetic sheets, encased in the same outfit you woke up in. Every wrinkle in the fabric presses into your body like a question you don't have time to answer. You dream of wind on your legs. You dream of a clean t-shirt. You dream of choice. And in the dream, no one is wearing beige. It starts with a dull ache in your molar. Just a twinge, really. You press your tongue against it. Bad move. The pain flares like someone stuck a red-hot nail into your jaw. You're not dying, not yet. You just live in a bunker where toothpaste is a luxury, toothbrushes are the thickness of pine needles, and dental floss exists only in fairy tales. Welcome to oral hygiene in Cold War prepper paradise, where your teeth are slowly staging a revolution, and unfortunately, they're winning. There are no dentists here. That profession didn't make the shelter cut. Too specialized, too squeamish. There is, however, one guy who used to work in inventory management who now handles extractions. He has pliers. He also has a nickname, The yank. Nobody says it out loud when he's around. You brush, of course. Once a day, if the water ration allows. Your toothbrush has bristles so stiff they could scratch glass. The toothpaste? It's a grainy, chalk-like paste stored in single-use foil packets that expired sometime during the Reagan administration. Tastes like sadness. Leaves your mouth feeling like dry concrete. Mouthwash? Non-existent. Gum? Forbidden. Something about the air vents. So instead, you rinse your mouth with warm, metal-flavored water and pretend it's minty. It's not. It's more like licking the inside of a tin can that used to hold peas. You begin to recognize fellow sufferers by the way they chew. Slowly, cautiously, always on one side. Smiling becomes a calculated decision. Laughing too hard? Dangerous. Gums are inflamed and molars are ticking time bombs. One woman in bunk 19 has lost 3 teeth in a week. Her diet now consists solely of creamed corn and boiled eggs. She says it's fine. She also hasn't made eye contact since Tuesday. Historians still argue whether the shelter designers underestimated how fast oral health would decline in a zero fresh food, low water, stress-soaked environment. Some think they knew and simply hoped no one would live long enough for it to matter. Toothaches become background noise, just like the fans, the Geiger counter, and the constant hum of fluorescent lights. But every now and then, the pain spikes. You rub your jaw. You try not to cry. You definitely try not to mention it out loud, because that's how the yank finds out. There's a supply locker marked medical, but opening it requires officer clearance. Inside are bandages, iodine, and possibly, rumor has it, a single bottle of aspirin. 1 tablet for every 10 people. It's like the Hunger Games, but for ibuprofen. Someone once asked for clove oil. The shelter commander said, "This isn't a spa." Which is fair, because spas don't usually have radiation drills and communal toilets. And here's the real horror. Even if you get a tooth pulled, there's no anesthetic. Just a belt to bite on, and maybe, if you're lucky, some strong hands to hold your shoulders down. One guy passed out mid-pull, and everyone agreed it was probably the most peaceful moment of his month. You start brushing more gently, more obsessively, as if you can scrub the fear away. But without proper nutrition, no vitamin C, no calcium, no fresh anything, your teeth are fighting a losing battle. You run your tongue over them constantly, checking for looseness. You tell yourself it's fine, but the gum line is receding like an army in retreat. Your breath, not great. You try not to exhale when speaking. You try not to speak. And then there's the breath of others. In a bunker, odors have nowhere to go. Every conversation is an olfactory gamble. You learn to angle your face, to nod instead of answer, to master the polite half-smile that says, "Yes, I agree," without inhaling too deeply. People start trading mint-flavored ration gum, technically forbidden, definitely hoarded. One guy offers a can of peaches for a half-used tube of wintergreen paste number, Panchoir. Deals like this are how underground economies form. In the back of your mind, you think of pre-bunker life, dental appointments, waiting rooms with fish tanks, hygienists who asked how your day was while wielding metal hooks. You miss them. You miss the light, minty polish at the end. You miss fluoride, even though you never knew what it did. You fantasize about mouthwash, about floss, about biting into something crunchy without doing a mental risk assessment. Instead, you chew your mush, favoring one side. You avoid the yank. You tell yourself that when the world reopens, you'll see a real dentist. But until then, your mouth is a battlefield, and the plaque is winning. You wake up to the shriek of the ventilation fan. Not an alarm, just maintenance kicking in. But in this place, even the air sounds like it's had enough. And so have you. Because today, like yesterday, and the day before, and the 172 days before that, you go to work. There is no weekend in a Cold War bunker. No Friday beers, no Saturday sleep-ins. Time is flat. Your shifts are organized by a rotating chart on the rec room wall. It's color-coded, but faded with use and taped over in places. You stare at it like it might change. It won't. Your assigned duty? Food preparation. Again. You pull on your jumpsuit, still damp from yesterday's steam cycle, and trudge to the galley kitchen, where 600 calories of beige will be distributed to the masses in 3 identical shifts. Breakfast is soy mash. Lunch is lentil sludge. Dinner is protein loaf, which, despite the name, is neither loaf nor comfort. The ingredients list is classified, or just forgotten, but it tastes like mashed cardboard with a whisper of despair. You stir giant vats with an oar-sized spoon. There's no finesse, just volume. You ration the portions with military precision. 180 grams per tray, give or take. 1 scoop too generous, and you get stares. 2 scoops? You're a rebel, a folk hero, but probably reassigned to air duct cleaning next week. The tools are rudimentary. Knives are blunt. Mixing bowls are scarred. The industrial stove makes a sound like it's regretting its life choices. Your gloves are too big. Your patience is too small. Meanwhile, across the corridor, someone's repairing a water pipe. Next door, 2 people in sanitation suits are cataloguing canned peaches for the 3rd time this month. Nobody trusts the numbers. Or the peaches. One woman, Helen, formerly a corporate executive, is now in charge of sweeping debris from under the water recycling unit. She once led a team of 200. Now she leads a team of dust bunnies. Historians still argue whether the sudden collapse of social hierarchy in survival environments results in increased cooperation or quiet mutiny. Jury's out. But Helen hasn't spoken in 3 days. You work 6-hour shifts 3 times per day. That's 18 hours of labor on a 24-hour cycle. But you get breaks, they say. Sure, you get 30 minutes to chew your rations and contemplate your decisions while sitting on a metal bench that leaves indentations on your thighs. The phrase labor rotation sounds democratic. It's not. Some jobs are worse than others. Trash incineration? A sweat-drenched nightmare. Composting toilet maintenance? Self-explanatory. Air filtration duty. Imagine disassembling a vacuum while everyone waits to breathe. Children? They work too. Small hands are useful for maintenance, says the sign above the recycling chute. You saw an 8-year-old last week, elbow deep in broken fan parts. He looked like he'd seen some things. Maybe he had. Maybe he was born here. Women and men perform the same roles. Equality has been achieved. Not out of principle, but out of exhaustion. Everyone is replaceable. Everyone is essential. And everyone's back hurts. The most physically grueling job? Probably hydroponic farming. Sounds peaceful. Isn't. You bend, you lift, you squint at pale lettuces growing under UV lights that fry your retinas. The water is always just a bit too warm, and the smell of nutrient sludge clings to you for hours. Some bunker dwellers keep journals. One entry reads, Tuesday, fixed pipe, 8 beans. Dave cried during shift. Another reads, the can opener broke. We used a chisel. It worked. Kind of. These are the closest things to poetry in the shelter. There's no music. Speakers play looped public service announcements. Work sustains us all. Cooperation ensures survival. Gratitude is duty. After 30 loops, you stop hearing it. But part of you still flinches when the voice says, non-compliance is counterproductive. Every task becomes ritual. You scrub the same corner of the floor each night, not because it's dirty, but because it's your corner, a place where you still have control. You dream of unemployment, of boredom, of skipping work. But you know the truth. In the bunker, there is no rest. There's just the next job. And then the next. And then the next. There's a saying in the bunker. The weather doesn't follow you down here, but it never really leaves either. And that's the problem. You've traded storms for stillness, seasons for stale, sunshine for fluorescent tubes that hum like bees stuck in a jar. No snow, no rain, just regulated climate systems designed by engineers who apparently never had to live in their own inventions. The temperature is supposed to stay at a comfortable 21 degrees Celsius. That's what the manual says. But in reality, it's a lawless fluctuation. One corridor feels like a freezer aisle, while the dormitory makes your skin stick to synthetic sheets. You wake up sweating, then shiver 10 minutes later. It's the kind of temperature whiplash that makes you nostalgic for blizzards. Your bunk is near a vent. Lucky you. Except the vent groans like an old man with sinus problems, and it sometimes blasts icy air at 3 a.m. sharp, like clockwork insomnia. Your jumpsuit, now stiff from constant wear and zero laundering, offers the same thermal protection as a wet napkin. The fabric clings in summer and chafes in winter, which is impressive considering both seasons occur within a 30-meter hallway. Some residents have tried to hack the climate by stuffing their sleeves with dried lettuce leaves from the hydroponics room. Others hoard blankets like currency. There's a guy in Section C who reportedly owns 7. He's a legend. Or a hoarder. Possibly both. And then there's humidity, your silent enemy. When the vents glitch and the filters clog, condensation forms on everything. Walls drip, pipes sweat. Your pillow becomes a sponge. Mold appears overnight like a cursed guest that refuses to leave. Historians still argue whether Cold War bunker blueprints factored in psychological responses to simulated weather conditions, or if mood lighting and temperature balance were just buzzwords to satisfy military procurement forms. People begin to hallucinate seasons. One woman started layering clothes for fall. A man walked laps muttering about shoveling driveways. Someone made paper snowflakes out of toilet rations and taped them above their bed. A brief moment of joy, until the commander asked why water rations had dipped by 3%. There are fans, loud ones. Their job is to circulate air, but all they really do is stir it like soup. And when they stop, the silence is so thick you hear people breathing on the other side of the room. Summer in the bunker is a myth, but that doesn't stop the sweat. The air becomes syrupy. Shirts stick, hair clings. Everyone smells faintly of stress and lentils. The deodorant supply ran out on day 74. No one talks about it. In winter mode, it's different. You huddle under your one-thread count blanket, knees to chest, wondering how cold steel manages to feel colder than actual ice. Your breath fogs up your glasses. You consider burning a sock for warmth before realizing fire is banned. For good reason. There's no window, no sunrise, no way to track weather outside. Just a flickering LED readout near the main entrance, displaying an outdated forecast and UV index for morale. No one believes it, but everyone checks it anyway, like a horoscope for survivors. And the noise. Oh, the noise. The fans, the vents, the pressure pumps. Like living in the belly of a mechanical beast. Sometimes, when they all sync up, the bunker vibrates slightly, just enough to rattle your fillings and remind you you're 20 meters underground, sealed like a sardine in a titanium tin. A few months in, someone painted clouds on the ceiling tiles in Rec Room B. It was unsettling, especially since they were grey. Another person tried hanging a poster of a beach. The authorities removed it for creating unrealistic expectations. You long for weather, real weather. You miss that first crisp autumn morning. You miss puddles. You miss sunburns. You'd take a thunderstorm right now if it meant one breath of real air. Instead, you learn to embrace bunker climate, a mix of sauna and ice cave set on eternal malfunction. You adapt. You stop sweating the sweat. You stop shivering when your toes go numb. You stop noticing the mold. You stop noticing a lot of things. You wake up with a thirst that wraps around your tongue like a wool sock. The air is dry, the vents are wheezing again, and your mouth tastes like expired chalk. You reach for your water bottle, empty, again. Water in the bunker is not just a resource, it's a currency. It's hope in a plastic jug. Your ration to 2.3 liters per day, which sounds fine, until you realize that includes drinking, washing, cooking, brushing, and the occasional emergency cleanup when someone's recycled lentil loaf doesn't sit right. You head to the hydration station, just a glorified pump connected to the filtration tank. The water is technically clean. Technically, it smells like metal and tastes like regret. Some days it has a suspicious yellowish tint. Those days, you just close your eyes and drink anyway. Bathing is a luxury, like opera or silk sheets. You're permitted 1 shower per week, 2 if you're on compost duty. But the shower is not so much a shower as a timed mist. You stand naked under a rusty nozzle, eyes closed, while it spritzes you for 45 seconds like a depressed houseplant. Soap, if you're lucky. Otherwise, it's recycled grey paste made from no one knows. It leaves you feeling slightly cleaner, but mysteriously itchier. Your towel is also your blanket, your curtain, and your napkin. It smells like ambition and mildew. And there's the philosophy of the place. Don't wash too much. You'll open your pores and invite disease. That's an actual line from the hygiene manual, laminated in the hall. So you begin to believe it. You let grime become armor. Historians still argue whether Cold War bunkers truly emphasized bodily cleanliness, or if the propaganda posters showing smiling, well-scrubbed citizens were just morale-boosting fantasies drawn by someone who'd never smelled an unwashed crew after a 12-day lockdown. You notice things, how people avoid close conversation, how everyone leans slightly away from each other in meetings, how, over time, you all become comfortable with discomfort. Body odor is no longer offensive, it's just the background hum of humanity. There was once a small pond in the hydroponic wing, a water feature for air humidity. Someone drank from it, once. He was sick for 2 weeks and now has a permanent cough. The pond is sealed. The legend remains. Diseases spread differently here. Not quickly. Just eventually. 1 sore throat becomes 10. Diarrhea takes down a whole shift crew. Nobody talks about worms, but everybody has a gut issue. It's impolite to ask for details. Your stomach always makes strange noises now. Bubbling, clicking, occasionally screaming. You tell yourself it's normal, that everyone's stomach sounds like a jazz trio in distress. And still, the biggest threat? Not infection, not dehydration. It's doubt. You start to doubt the filtration system, the pipes, the tanks, the labels on the canisters. You imagine a slow trickle of something, unfiltered, making its way into your cup. And yet, you drink, you always drink. Because the only thing worse than drinking suspect bunker water is not drinking at all. So you sip, slowly. You wait. You hope today won't be the day your insides revolt. And when you catch your reflection, dry lips, cracked skin, a sunless ghost, you wonder what you'd look like in rain. Real rain. You try to remember what that even feels like. The way it hits your scalp. The way it smells. The way it makes puddles. Not problems. You can't remember. All you have now is water that doesn't cleanse, doesn't comfort. Just drips. Just clings. Just keeps you alive enough to keep working.